Chapter 1200. News of what had happened on the streets spread like wildfire. It had become the hottest topic of conversation in the imperial city. Many people even found out that the ghost doctor had come to the imperial city of Chi Tian country and had been escorted to the imperial palace by the emperor. Hence, many people who wanted to seek medical treatment waited outside the imperial palace, waiting for the ghost doctor to come out. Meanwhile, in the Shangguan household, the master of the Shangguan household who had just recounted what had happened on the streets to the master of the Shangguan household was still fuming. He spat out, "This Fengjiu, she doesn't know what's good for her. She actually dared to say that we were randomly acknowledging her as our relative. She doesn't even know that we are a century-old pill family. If she wasn't really related to us, why would we randomly acknowledge her as our relative?" Sitting on the main seat, the master of the Shangguan household listened to his words and sipped his tea. He didn't say a word and no one could tell what he was thinking. "Father, this Fengjiu is really despicable. If someone like her were to enter our Shangguan household, I'm afraid that she wouldn't be disciplined. Furthermore, she even used a long whip to attack our people on the streets. I think it's better if we don't acknowledge her as our relative." Hearing this, the master of the Shangguan household put down his teacup and spoke in a hoarse voice, "It's right that she doesn't know." Back then, Feng Zhao's memories had already been erased and sealed. If she knew, wouldn't she already know the cause and effect of this matter? Do you think that if she knew what had happened back then, she would still return to our Shangguan household? Then what should we do? Are we just going to let her do as she pleases? Think of a good excuse to deal with her when the time comes. Also, the next time you see her, bring her back. I'd like to meet Wanrong's daughter. Yes. The master of the Shangguan household nodded and asked, "Father, now that she's been brought into the imperial palace, what should we do?" "It's even better that she's been brought into the imperial palace. Come with me to the imperial palace and we can ask the emperor to make the decision. When the time comes, if the emperor were to announce that she has returned to our Shangguan household, then things would be even more different." Hearing this, the master of the Shangguan household's eyes lit up. "Father, you mean that whether she acknowledges us or not, we should acknowledge her first? First, we should confirm our relationship." "That's right. We are her mother's family, so it's only right for her to acknowledge us." However, when the Shangguan clan head thought of how difficult it was to deal with that Fengjiu, he couldn't help but frown. "But I think this Fengjiu is different from other teenage girls. She gives me a very strange feeling. Moreover, she has the aura of a superior. When I was coldly glanced at by her on the street, I actually felt a sense of fear. I don't think she is the kind of person who can be easily manipulated. So what? Whether she admits it or not, the blood relationship is still there." The old master's voice was emotionless. He only felt that since she was his daughter's daughter and his granddaughter, she could come back to the Shangguan family. At that time, if she handed over some pill recipes, they would be able to refine those pill recipes for them. Recognizing her would only be beneficial to their Shangguan family. "Then I'll go and prepare now." "Father, when do you plan to enter the palace?" "I'll give the order right away. Let's wait a little longer." He gestured for him to leave first. "Yes." The master of the Shangguan household left. At this time, the third elder, who was waiting outside, saw him come out and stepped forward. When he came inside, he first bowed to the old master inside. "Greetings, old master." Chapter 1201. I wanted to come over and talk about Fengjiu, but I'm worried that doing so would backfire. Just as third elder finished speaking, the old master's voice was heard. "You don't have to worry about this, I will make arrangements." Hearing this, third elder could only sigh, shake his head and walk out even though he had something to say. Perhaps to outsiders, the Shangguan family was a century-old family of alchemists and was very impressive, but only the few of them knew that the Shangguan family was no longer the same as before. There weren't many outstanding alchemists in the family. The only one who could be said to have extraordinary talent, Shangguan Wanrong, was originally still in the family, but she had already been taken away for half a year. If there wasn't any new blood, if there weren't any outstanding disciples, it wouldn't be long before the Shangguan family would gradually decline. Actually, they were already going downhill, but the family head and old master didn't want to admit it. Perhaps, they knew it themselves, otherwise, they wouldn't have tried to bring Fengjiu back to the Shangguan family after finding out that she was Feng Xiao and Wanrong's child. However, what they didn't know was that Fengjiu wasn't like the others. Since she was the princess of the Phoenix dynasty and was able to personally push her father onto the throne, just this point alone was enough to prove that her ability was extraordinary. Furthermore, her reputation as the ghost doctor had long surpassed that of the Shangguan family. How could she be easily controlled by them? Be brought into the Shangguan family? On the other side, when the people in the palace heard that the ghost doctor had come, the concubines were all overjoyed. They wanted to ask the ghost doctor for a face-nourishing pill to help them become more beautiful. Thus, they all went to the king and begged him to bring them to see the ghost doctor. While the concubines were waiting outside the palace, the king of Qi Tian country was listening to a secret guard's report in the palace. Oh. Then, this ghost doctor Fengjiu's identity is the princess of the Phoenix dynasty? She's a woman. The king was surprised. He had sent someone to invite her after hearing the news, but he didn't expect that the Shangguan family had somehow found out that the ghost doctor's true identity was the princess of the Phoenix dynasty, and even said that she was the niece of the Shangguan family. If this news was true, then it would be incredible. The master of the Shangguan clan said it on the streets, but the ghost doctor didn't admit it. Instead, she mocked him, causing him to lose all face. Is he here now? The monarch asked. We're here. We've arranged for them to stay in the side hall. I'll go take a look and meet this ghost doctor. He stood up and walked outside. He was very curious about this ghost doctor. Just as he walked outside, he saw a group of concubines outside. When they saw him come out, they all surrounded him. Your Majesty, I heard that the ghost doctor has come to the palace. Your Majesty, we would also like to see the ghost doctor and ask for the pills. Your Majesty. Listening to the chaotic voices and seeing these women like this, the monarch flicked his sleeves and shouted in a deep voice, all right, go back to where you came from. Look at you guys, what do you look like? When they heard this, none of them dared to say another word. They could only lower their heads and acknowledge the order before retreating. In the side hall, Fengjiu sat leisurely, drinking tea and eating the exquisite pastries of the palace. Su Shan, who was behind her, was not as relaxed as she was. This was his first time entering the palace. Even though he was standing behind the master of this side hall, he still felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. Chapter 1202. Not only was she the princess of the Phoenix dynasty, she also had the identity of the renowned ghost doctor. He really did not know what kind of luck he had to meet such a master. Seeing his master leisurely sitting there, drinking tea and eating snacks, he could not help but secretly admire her calmness. Even in the palace of a first-rate country, she could still be so calm and at ease, as if she was in her own home. The monarch has arrived. The voice from outside made Su Shan, who was in the side hall, even more nervous. He looked towards his master, only to see her leisurely sipping her tea and patting her robes before standing up. At this moment, a middle-aged man wearing a bright yellow dragon robe, accompanied by two nascent soul cultivators and a few palace servants, walked in. The moment he stepped into the side hall, he started to size up the red figure standing there. The first thing that entered his eyes was that peerlessly handsome face that was like an immortal's and that pair of cold, deep, and mysterious eyes. The confidence and carefreeness that was emitted from between his brows caused him to be in high spirits. If he hadn't learned from the news that the person in front of him was actually a woman, he really wouldn't have been able to tell that she was a woman just by looking at her. This was because there wasn't the slightest trace of makeup that belonged to a woman on Feng Jiu's body. There was only an evil and wanton aura of nobility. This aura seemed to be innate, emanating from within. His every movement was filled with an awe-inspiring aura and extraordinary cultivation. It had to be said that even among his sons and daughters, there was not a single one who could be compared to this person in front of him. Such an outstanding and peerless person, was it really possible for such a small country to nurture such a person? His steps were steady, his body was dignified, his eyes were sharp, his face was dignified, and his lips were slightly pursed. His entire body exuded an awe-inspiring aura. This person should be a person who kills without hesitation. This was Fengzhou's first impression of the monarch of Qi Tian Kingdom. Monarch. After he sat down on the main seat, she slightly cupped her hands and bowed. Ghost Doctor, there is no need to be so courteous, please sit. He smiled and gestured for Fengzhou to sit down. Hearing this, Fengzhou nodded and sat back down. Seeing that the Ghost Doctor's actions were casual and unrestrained, the monarch's eyes flashed and he smiled. I've long wanted to meet the Ghost Doctor, but I've never had the chance. Knowing that the Ghost Doctor has come to the Qi Tian Kingdom, this monarch is overjoyed. I've heard that the capital of Qi Tian country is flourishing with many scenic spots and historical sites. I've long wanted to come and take a look. Since I was passing by this place, I decided to spend a few days sightseeing. But I didn't expect that as soon as I arrived at the imperial city, all the patriarchs of the various clans would know about it. Even the emperor was alarmed. Hearing this, the monarch laughed heartily. That's because the Ghost Doctor's name has shaken every country, yet she's extremely mysterious. It's difficult to even meet the Ghost Doctor, which made everyone curious. When they found out that the Ghost Doctor had arrived at the imperial city, they naturally wanted to invite her over. As he spoke, he continued, this time, it's rare for the Ghost Doctor to come to the Qi Tian Kingdom. You must stay here for a few days. If you want to go anywhere to sightsee or play, this monarch will accompany you. I'll definitely let the Ghost Doctor enjoy herself to the fullest. As soon as he said this, Fengzhou's eyes flashed. The monarch of a country was accompanying her on a sightseeing tour. This was putting her on the same level as him. She really had a lot of face. Chapter 1203. Hearing her words, the monarch smiled. I heard that you're the princess of the Phoenix dynasty. That's right. I've been wandering around for a while and haven't returned home for a year. I'm planning to play here for a few days before returning home. She originally planned to bring her mother back, but she didn't expect that her mother was no longer here. As for the people from the Shengguan clan, they separated her parents, sealed her father's memories, and imprisoned her mother to refine pills for their Shengguan clan. They still want to acknowledge her. What wishful thinking. Then stay in the palace for 2 days. Let this monarch properly play host. Saying this, he smiled. The scenery in the palace is not bad. Why don't this monarch accompany the Ghost Doctor for a walk? That's fine too. Fengzhou nodded in response and stood up. She saw the monarch walk down and make an inviting gesture to her. Only then did the two of them walk outside. The two nascent soul cultivators and Su Shan followed 3 steps behind the two of them. The scenery in the palace was indeed pleasant. Exquisite and gorgeous could be seen everywhere. The two of them chatted as they walked. When they arrived at the imperial garden, they saw hundreds of flowers blooming in the garden with a refreshing fragrance. The two of them stopped in their tracks. Looking at the red-clothed Fengzhou beside him, the monarch smiled. If I hadn't received the news, even this monarch wouldn't have been able to tell that the Ghost Doctor is a woman. I've been traveling outside all year round, so it's convenient to dress as a man. Over time, I've imitated men's mannerisms and expressions. It's normal for the monarch not to be able to tell. The Ghost Doctor is in her prime. I wonder, are you married? Hearing this, Fengzhou glanced to the side and looked at him in surprise. He laughed, hee, it's impossible for this monarch to not have such thoughts. Moreover, with the Ghost Doctor's reputation and talent, even if the ghost doctor is a princess of a country, it's enough to form a marriage alliance with any large country. I'm not afraid that the ghost doctor will laugh at me. I have a few sons who are quite outstanding. If the ghost doctor isn't married and doesn't have a sweetheart, I can meet them and see if they can catch the ghost doctor's eye. Hearing this, Feng Jiu couldn't help but chuckle. Monarch is mistaken. I'm already engaged. Oh. There's already someone who caught the ghost doctor's eye. Which country are you from? He was a little surprised. Looking at Feng Jiu's appearance, coupled with the fact that he had never heard of any man by her side, how could she be engaged to someone? I wonder if your majesty has heard of Yan Dian. Her expression was relaxed, and there was a smile between her brows. Yama Palace? Upon hearing these two words, the monarch's expression changed slightly. His heart skipped a beat. Yan Dian must be huge. Even the black market can't compare to it. They have forces in every country. Of course, I know that. Although Yan Dian had not risen to power for long, its influence was spread across the various countries. Moreover, Yan Dian was filled with experts. Even first-class countries like them did not dare to provoke him. However, the Yama Palace was extremely secretive. If the kings of first-class countries were the rulers of their countries in the open, then the Yama Lord of the Yama Palace was the ruler of the night. Therefore, the powerful forces of second-class and first-class countries all knew that the Yama Lord of the Yama Palace was known as the ruler of the Dark Night. Furthermore, Yan Dian's influence had never been revealed to the public. It was precisely because of this that not many people knew of its huge influence and its distribution in the various major countries. Chapter 1204. However, she mentioned Yan Dian at this time. Could it be that the person she was talking about was from Yan Dian? Thinking of this, he only felt a rumble in his mind. His mood suddenly fluctuated violently. Looking at her, he tried to use a calm tone and asked, "Could it be that the person you are talking about is from Yan Dian?" "That's right. He is the Yama Lord of Yan Dian." She revealed a smile and said, "This is actually not a secret. Back then, when Qingtang Crown Prince joined forces with Murongbo to deal with our Feng clan, he appeared." The monarch felt that he could not continue smiling. Even if he knew that the power behind Feng Jiu was strong, he did not expect that other than what they knew, there was actually such a strong power that they did not dare to make an enemy out of. Yan Dian's power was strong, and it was not that no one had thought of uprooting it. However, according to their investigation, they found that this power was related to an extremely strong power of the 8 great empires. Ever since they knew this, the monarchs of the first-grade countries could be said to have ordered their subordinates to avoid Yan Dian if they could, and to not make an enemy out of him. Yan Dian wasn't that bad either. They didn't disturb them too much. Yan Dian only existed in the dark and only dealt with matters in the dark. They didn't interfere with matters on the surface or fights for territory. Because of this, they gradually let down their guard against Yan Dian. Today, he heard the 2 words Yan Dian from the ghost doctor's mouth. Moreover, she even said such a shocking thing. If this news were to spread, and everyone knew about the relationship between the ghost doctor and Yan Dian, they would probably not dare to offend her. What made him even more shocked was that the ghost doctor's father, Feng Shao, the country that the ghost doctor came from, clearly had such a strong power and backing, but had not used these connections since the founding of the country. Otherwise, the Phoenix dynasty would definitely not be at the level of a 6th-grade country. To have such a power as backing, they definitely had the qualifications to become a 1st-grade country. At this time, a palace servant stepped forward, bowed, and reported, "Monarch, the Shangguan clan's old master and clan head are here." Hearing this, he was slightly startled, and then said to Feng Jiu, "Ghost doctor, please help yourself. This sovereign will let the palace servants show you around, and later bring you to the palace where you can rest." "All right." She nodded slightly and smiled in response. She watched him leave after instructing the two palace servants. A member of the Shangguan family? Her eyes moved slightly and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. She walked slowly among the flowers and walked around for a while. Then, she walked to the pavilion in the imperial garden and sat down. She held her chin with one hand and tapped the table with the other. She said to the two servants, "Make me a pot of tea, and give me a plate of almond cakes and a plate of chestnut cakes." "Yes." The palace servant responded. One of them waited outside the pavilion while the other turned to instruct the palace servants to bring in tea and pastries. Su Shan was also standing guard outside the pavilion. Looking at the hundreds of blooming flowers in the imperial garden, his mind was in a mess. He was dizzy from one shocking news after another. Not long after, the palace servants brought in the tea and pastries, and then quietly stood outside the pavilion, not daring to disturb her. At the same time, in the side hall, the monarch was chatting with the Shangguan clan's father and son for a while. Then, he went straight to the point and asked, "I wonder why the two of you are here today." Chapter 1205. Hearing this, the father and son looked at each other. In the end, it was the old man who spoke. "My lord, we came here today to ask for your help." "Oh. What is it?" he asked. "Actually, we found out that the ghost Dr. Feng Jiu is Feng Zhao's daughter, and this Feng Xiao is my daughter Wanrong's husband. However, due to some reason, the two of them have been separated. Now that I know her identity, I want to acknowledge her. Therefore, I would like to ask for your help." Hearing this, the king chuckled, "I'm afraid I can't help you with this. The ghost doctor is only here as a guest. If this is true, I don't think the ghost doctor will acknowledge you even if I don't help. If she doesn't want to acknowledge you, this king will only cause trouble. However, she is indeed my sister's daughter," Shangguan family head said. "Then as long as you go to the Phoenix dynasty and her father acknowledges you, this matter will be easy to resolve, right?" He smiled and said, "All right, the two of you, this king still has matters to attend to. I'll take my leave first." Seeing this, the two of them could only stand up and bid farewell. After leaving the palace, Shangguan family head looked at his father and asked, "Father, are we really going to send someone to the Phoenix dynasty? That Feng Zhao's memory has been sealed. Even if we go, I'm afraid he won't be able to remember. Since Feng Zhou won't acknowledge her, and the king isn't willing to help, then we can only make a trip to the Phoenix dynasty. Moreover, the people who go can't be ordinary people. No matter what, I hope this Feng Zhou can help our Shangguan family. But her power and reputation are great. I'm afraid it won't be that easy." As the Shangguan clan patriarch spoke, he frowned. "Didn't you hear what she said on the streets today? That expression, that tone, it's obvious that she doesn't want to acknowledge our Shangguan clan. I'm worried that even if we send someone to the Phoenix dynasty, she won't acknowledge our Shangguan clan in the end." Shangguan family head's face darkened and snorted, "Our Shangguan family wants to be their in-laws. That's their honor." Seeing this, the Shangguan clan leader did not say anything more. It was useless to say anything more. He would just wait and see. On the other side, Feng Zhou was admiring the flowers in the imperial garden. At this moment, a beautiful woman was sitting in front of her. This person claimed to be the concubine who had taken her beauty pill. Knowing that she had come to the palace, she specially came to thank her. "Ghost Doctor. Ever since I ate the Ghost Doctor's face-nourishing pill, my appearance has returned to my 17 or 18 years old appearance." Even the monarch was amazed when he saw it. "I have to thank the Ghost Doctor's pill for being able to regain his favor." The beautiful woman's voice was soft and gentle. No matter how one looked at her, she didn't seem to be in her 30s. Regardless of whether it was her skin, figure, or face, they were all first-rate beauties. "You don't have to thank me. I wasn't the one who auctioned the pills." Hearing this, the smile on the concubine's face froze, and she was unable to continue. He felt that Fengjiu's words were too blunt. "That, ghost doctor, it's like this. I want to ask if I can buy some pills from you. I can buy them at a high price. I won't let you suffer a loss." After thinking about it, she still directly asked the question. She felt that if she continued to talk about other people, she wouldn't be able to ask these questions later. Chapter 1206. You're the one who refined this pill, aren't you the one who has the final say on the rules? As soon as she finished speaking, the youth opposite her flicked his robes and stood up. Excuse me, excuse me. As she spoke, she stepped out of the pavilion and said to the two palace servants, "Where is the palace that the monarch has arranged for me? Lead the way." "It's in the palace in front, please come this way." The two palace servants hurriedly said, half bowing as they led the way. Seeing the red-clothed youth leave just like that, the concubine was stunned for a moment. She was a little angry, but there was nothing she could do. The ghost doctor's identity was special, even if she was the monarch's favorite concubine, she didn't dare to do anything to him. For the next 2 days, Fengjiu stayed in the palace. Before leaving the palace, the monarch had prepared many gifts for her to bring back. She couldn't refuse, so in the end, she could only accept them. As soon as Fengjiu came out of the palace, she was surrounded by people outside who were asking for medicine. Fortunately, Su Shan followed her and blocked those people all the way, allowing her to return to the inn first. She planned to walk around the city for 2 days, looking at some of the elixirs in the first-tier country's imperial city before returning. However, not long after she entered the inn's room, another person came to ask for help. Outside the room, Su Shan reported, "Mistress, the head of the Li family outside is here. I won't see them. Whoever comes, block them back." As she spoke in the room, she looked down at her red robes and frowned slightly. Now, she could be said to be transparent in the imperial city. She reckoned that once she walked out, she wouldn't need to buy anything or walk around, she would be surrounded directly. After thinking about it, she took out a set of inconspicuous green robes from her space and put it on. Then, she dressed up simply and went out the back window. At this time, those people were still guarding the front of the inn, waiting for Fengjiu to come out. However, they didn't know that she had already changed her clothes, disguised herself as an inconspicuous youth, and blended into the crowd. In the city's largest elixir trading company, an inconspicuous green figure strolled around, sometimes looking at this, sometimes touching that. Seeing elixirs that couldn't be found anywhere else, she couldn't help but be a little surprised. A first-class country is indeed a first-class country. The biggest elixir trading company in a first-class country is really not bad. They actually have so many good things. This trip is not in vain. She stood in front of a counter and leaned forward to look at a complete piece of snakeskin. She couldn't take her eyes off it. Good stuff. The skin of the blue crystal snake is actually whole. To be able to skin it so completely, his skills are not bad. She murmured softly, thinking about the effects of this snakeskin as medicine. She thought of several medicines that could use this snakeskin. She straightened her back and looked around. Not far behind her, there was a young man dressed in blue looking at her. Seeing this, she pointed at the snakeskin in the cabinet and said to the man, "Take this out and let me see." Blue crystal snakes were relatively rare, and their skin was even more precious. They could be sold for a very high price, so there were quite a few fake ones. Hearing Fengjiu's words, the man walked over. After looking at the snakeskin in the cabinet, he said to Fengjiu, "This blue crystal snakeskin is worth 200,000 gold coins. Do you still want to take it out?" Chapter 1207. Facing Fengjiu's gaze, the man realized that his tone wasn't too good and that he was looking down on her. Thus, he coughed and said, "This blue crystal snake skin is very precious. If everyone wants to take a look and touch it, who will pay for it if it is damaged? Thus, unless you want to buy it, you can't take it out. Don't worry, if it is damaged by my hands, I will buy it. Quick, take it out and let me take a look. She gestured. Seeing this, the man had no choice but to take out the snake skin and place it on the counter. Fengjiu didn't bother with him. After carefully inspecting it and confirming that it was indeed the blue crystal snake skin, she nodded her head and said, "Wrap it up for me. I'm coming." The man was stunned when he heard this. "Why you want it? This isn't 200,000 silver coins, but 200,000 gold coins. You really want it?" This man didn't look like he was rich. Could he afford it? Take it for me. I want to look at the rest," she said as she continued to walk inside. After the man regained his senses, he hurriedly carried the snake skin and followed behind her. From time to time, he would look at the green figure in front of him. He felt that he shouldn't judge a book by its cover. He felt even more ashamed of himself for looking down on her. He only recognized the clothes and not the person. There were indeed a lot of things in this elixir store. She managed to find more than 10 rare elixirs, which comforted her from the disappointment of not being able to see her mother after coming to the Qi Tian kingdom. "Let's settle the bill," she said to the man who was following behind her with more than 10 spiritual medicines. "All right, young master, please come this way." After walking around, the man's attitude changed greatly. Even his face was full of smiles. Within the spiritual medicine company, some of the people who were looking around for spiritual medicines would occasionally look over at Fengjiu. This was because the young man in green clothes didn't look very eye-catching. Yet, he had the ability to buy so many precious spiritual medicines. Even if they wanted to buy any one of those spiritual medicines, they wouldn't have the money to buy them. Yet, he had bought more than 10 spiritual medicines. What kind of background did he have? After paying the bill, Feng Nine put everything into her space and left. She walked out and walked around the street for a while. She bought some fruits, pastries, and other things. She planned to eat them on the way after they set off. However, after walking for a while, she realized that she was being watched. She walked slowly and leisurely until she turned into an alley. She leaned sideways and waited. Not long after, a gray figure flashed by. She was caught off guard and was startled, quickly retreating. "You've been following me all the way. What do you want?" She crossed her arms and asked the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man didn't expect this young man to know, so he no longer tried to hide and walked out. "Kid, if you know what's good for you, hand over the spirit herbs you just bought." Feng Jiu sneered and glanced at him. "So you're after my spirit medicine? You. You should know where this place is." In a first-class country like this, there were many pairs of eyes watching a fat sheep. This young man only had the strength of a foundation establishment cultivator. He didn't have any strong cultivators protecting him. Yet, he dared to buy more than 10 spiritual medicines. He was already being watched by those rogue cultivators. Feng Jiu smiled. It turned out that she had exposed her wealth and was being targeted as a fat sheep. Chapter 1208. What a big tone. I want to see. Before the middle-aged man could finish his words, his body froze. He only saw a green figure flash in front of his eyes, and a dagger with a cold light was already pressed against his throat. He could even feel the pain of his flesh being cut by the dagger and blood seeping out. For a moment, his heart was filled with fear. He was a golden core cultivator. How could a foundation establishment cultivator appear beside him in an instant and press a dagger against his throat? He didn't even have the chance to resist. Young master, spare me, I only want money." Cold sweat poured out from his forehead, and his voice was trembling and panicked. If at this moment, he still didn't know that the person in front of him was stronger than him, then he would have lived in vain. "Spare you? I already gave you a chance just now. Now that you want me to spare you, we'll have to see how many good things you have on you that can buy your life. A languid and somewhat careless voice entered his ears, making the middle-aged man's face turn gloomy. He originally thought that he was a fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered, but who knew that he himself would become the fat sheep to be slaughtered? However, there was nothing he could do about this situation. Whether he handed over the things on his own or was killed by this youth, it was all the same. He couldn't keep his things. His only hope was to keep his life. Thus, his body stiffened as he said, "I'll take it, I'll take it. Young master, don't be angry, I'll give you my chinkuan pouch." He hurriedly took out his chinkuan pouch, and took off all the valuable things on his body and handed it over to him. "Young master, I just want to ask for a chance to live." After Fengjiu received it, he stretched out his hand and chopped at the back of his neck. With a groan, he fell down. Seeing this, she put away the chinkuan pouch and walked out, planning to return to the inn first. Entering through the back window and returning to the room, she heard voices coming from outside. "This big brother, please let me in. My grandson's illness is really very serious. I've asked many doctors, and they all said that he can't be saved. However, someone told me that the ghost doctor can save him, the ghost doctor can save my grandson. This big brother, I beg you, I'll kowtow to you, I'll kowtow to you, please let me see the ghost doctor. I'm begging you." Hearing the sound outside, Feng Nine, who was in the room, changed her clothes and washed her face. After washing off the disguise on her face, she wiped the water stains on her face and walked out. "Auntie, it's not that I don't want to help you. My master has ordered that he won't see anyone. This, I can't do anything about it," Su Shan said helplessly as he helped the old woman up. "I've even brought my grandson here. I only beg the ghost doctor to take a look. Woo-woo. I only have this one grandson. His parents died a long time ago. It's only us, grandfather and grandson, who depend on each other. I beg you, let me see the ghost doctor." The old woman held her grandson in her arms as she cried and begged. Her sorrowful and helpless voice did not make the people in the inn feel anything. Human nature was selfish. If it had nothing to do with them, no matter how miserable others were, the sadness in their hearts would not be the same as what had happened to them. Moreover, most of them were cultivators and could see through life and death more clearly. Most of them were cold-blooded people. He was just a child. In their eyes, if he died, so be it. They didn't feel pity at all. Pity. Chapter 1209. A red figure walked out, attracting the attention of the crowd who had been watching indifferently. They could not help but run up. "The ghost doctor. It's the ghost doctor. The ghost doctor is here." Surprised voices rang out. The cultivators downstairs who wanted to ask for medicine all rushed up. However, before they could get close, they were blocked by Su Shan. "Ghost doctor, please save my grandson. Please save my grandson." The old woman held the child in one hand and tried to pull Fengjiu with the other. However, at that moment, a dagger with a cold glint appeared in her hand. She fiercely stabbed at Fengjiu. At the same time, the 7 or 8-year-old child in the old woman's arms jumped up. The child twisted the lid off a bottle and splashed it at Fengjiu. Su Shan was shocked and cried out, "Master, be careful." When he wanted to go forward, he was pushed back by a force and retreated a few meters. When the old woman rushed over, Fengjiu kicked out. At the same time, he waved his sleeve and pushed Su Shan away. He quickly retreated to avoid the thing the child had splashed at him. The thing was emitting white smoke. After it splashed on the ground, it made a sizzling sound. Even the ground was corroded and holes were formed. Seeing this, Fengjiu's eyes turned cold. He looked at the child who was about to pounce on him. In the next moment, the silver needle in his hand shot out. Whoosh! Whoosh! The silver needle entered between his eyebrows, leaving only a trace of blood. His eyes were wide open and his body stiffened. From life to death, only a moment had passed. Ah! The old woman shouted and pounced on Feng again. Her eyes were malicious, and her body was surging with bloodthirsty killing intent. Those who didn't know better would think that she had some deep grudge with Feng Jiu. Feng Jiu stood still and watched as the old woman pounced over. She didn't attack until she was right in front of her. A dagger suddenly shot out at a speed that was too fast for the old woman to react. The dagger carried a powerful aura of spiritual power, so the old woman couldn't dodge it even if she wanted to. Whoosh! Yes. The dagger with a sharp aura pierced through the old woman's heart with a whoosh, and with a bang, it stabbed into the pillar behind her, sinking deep into the wood. The old woman's body froze. She opened her mouth as if she couldn't believe that she was killed so easily. Master, this subordinate has failed in his duty. Please punish me. Su Shan, who finally reacted, quickly stepped forward and knelt on one knee. It was his fault for not being able to protect his master, causing his master to almost be ambushed. The cultivators who rushed over were stunned by this sudden change. There was actually someone who dared to assassinate the ghost doctor in the imperial city in broad daylight. He was courting death. Fengjiu's face was as cold as frost. He slowly walked forward and pulled out the dagger that was stuck in the pillar. He coldly said, "See if there are any clues on their bodies." "Yes." Su Shan hurriedly responded and went forward to search. However, he did not find any clues. He only found a poison pill in their teeth. Seeing this, he reported, "Master, these two should be death warriors. They hid poison in their teeth, but there are no clues on their bodies. Take them away and deal with them." Fengjiu turned and went inside. In his heart, he was thinking, who wanted to take his life? They even used the corpse-destroying water. Chapter 12:10. News of Fengjiu being attacked at the inn was quickly received by the various patriarchs in the city, and they were extremely surprised. Someone actually dared to attack the ghost doctor here. Who was so bold? After recovering from their shock, they came to the inn, intending to pay a visit. When they arrived, they saw that the black market's president was already in the inn, and the monarch had also sent someone to pay a visit. He was one step ahead of them, and was now planning to return. Because of this incident, the inn was cleared out by the monarch's people, leaving only Fengjiu and her servant. The owner of the inn did not dare to say anything. After all, the ghost doctor had almost met with an accident in their inn, and he also had to bear some responsibility. Today, after the inn was cleared out, there were no miscellaneous people, and even entering the inn had to be checked. Fortunately, they had some reputation in the city, and after the guard reported inside, they were allowed to enter. "Ghost Doctor, we heard that you were attacked today, and specially came to visit. Are you alright? Who was so bold, to actually dare to assassinate the ghost doctor?" "Thank you for your concern, I'm fine." Fengjiu smiled, and invited them to sit down, and let the waiter serve tea. "It's good that you're fine." The few nodded, and smiled as they sat down. They finally found a chance to chat with her. Although they knew that it was impossible to ask for pills, it was good to be able to chat with her and get familiar with her. The few of them and the black market's president ate and drank wine together in the inn, and only left in the evening to their heart's content. Fengjiu also returned to her room to rest until the next day, when she quietly left, leaving those who wanted to send her off empty-handed. Ever since his master had almost been attacked yesterday, Su Shan had been blaming himself. Even though he had been out for many years, he did not expect that someone would actually use that kind of child and old woman to kill someone. It was impossible for him to guard against that. He really did not dare to imagine, if his master had not dodged quickly, what would the consequences be. However, His master did not say anything, not even a word of reprimand, and this made him blame himself even more. If his master scolded him, perhaps, he would feel better. "Master, it was my dereliction of duty yesterday. Please punish me." Feng Jiu, who was in front of him, heard this and turned to look at him. "You don't have to blame yourself for this. The people who wanted to kill me were old people and children. Even I didn't think of it. Just be more careful in the future." Hearing this, he couldn't help but lower his head and replied, "Yes." After the master arrived at an empty space, he waved his sleeves in the air and a flying ship appeared. The two of them rose into the air, stepped into the flying ship, and flew into the sky. A month later, in the Qingting kingdom. Early in the morning, Feng Jiu brought Su Shan to the manor. After entering the array, she saw Leng Shuang, Leng Hua, and the others running towards her happily. "Master, you're back." Leng Hua came to her side and said, "Master, you've been gone for more than a year. We've been waiting here for you for more than a year. Finally, you're back. Master." The others bowed respectfully and greeted her. They were very happy to see her back. However, who was the person behind their master? Why did he follow their master here? Chapter 12:11. After several people got to know each other, Feng Jiu said to them, "I intend to transfer all of you back. You should prepare to go back to the Phoenix dynasty. All the forces here will be recalled." Hearing this, Feng Wei and the others were a little surprised. "Go back to the Phoenix dynasty? Then our original foundation here will also be moved back. Well, you will only have one task in the future, and that is to protect the Phoenix dynasty and my family." She looked at several people and said, "I intend to go back this time and arrange things well before going to the 8 great empires." "Master, you won't take us with you?" Feng Wei and the others thought that they couldn't follow their master and couldn't help but feel depressed. "Let me go for a while and see the situation. You go back to the Phoenix dynasty first. This time, I intend to take Leng Shuang, Leng Hua and Du Fan." Su Shan, who was behind, heard that he couldn't follow, and couldn't help but feel depressed. Thinking about it, he still wasn't qualified to follow his master to the 8 great empires. Leng Shuang, Leng Hua and Du Fan were happy to hear this. "What about me?" Bai Xiao touched her head and asked, "You won't let me go to the Phoenix dynasty, will you?" Feng Jiu smiled and said, "Of course not, you have to go to the 1-Star Academy to participate in the selection. With your Imperial Beast controlling talent, you have a high chance of being selected. After arriving at the sect, you have to work hard to cultivate the Imperial Beast controlling technique. If I don't ask you to look for us, you don't need to inquire about us. When I need you in the future, I will send someone to look for you. But, I'm afraid I can't enter the 1-Star Academy. The competition there is very strict. I don't even have the qualifications to take the assessment. You don't have to worry about this. I have arranged everything for you. The president of the black market and the dean of the 2-Star Academy will recommend you." Hearing this, Bai Zhao's face couldn't help but show surprise. "So it's like this. That's good, then I will go back home and report to the 1-Star Academy." Therefore, after she arranged everyone, she went back to the 6-Star Academy, intending to inform the dean and the others, so that they would not be able to leave quietly. 2 days later, in the morning, it was still early and there weren't many people walking around in the academy. She didn't want to disturb anyone else, so she came to say goodbye to the principal and the others. She didn't expect that she would be bumped into by a student as soon as she entered the academy. So be it. However, this student was a woman. When she saw her, she immediately cried out in alarm and screamed. "Ah! Feng Jiu is back! Feng Jiu is back!" The screams instantly broke the tranquility of the morning and reverberated in the sky. The students who heard the screams ran out one after another. When they saw the dazzling red figure in the field, they all screamed and cheered. Ah! It was Feng Jiu. It really was Fengjiu. Fengjiu is back. Fengjiu is back. For a time, the students of the various academies ran out, and rushed towards Fengjiu from all directions. They were running and cheering, which made Fengjiu unable to react. What was going on? She was startled. Not long after, she saw more than a dozen figures rushing from the mountain peak. They were the mentors of the academy. When they saw her, they surrounded her even before the students could surround her. Fengjiu. You finally came back. Chapter 12:12. Huh. She was a little confused by his words. We all know about the things you did in the 2-star academy. A mentor said with a smile, and then he saw the students gathered around, one by one. Fengjiu, Fengjiu. Okay, what are you all doing here? The vice dean came over from behind and motioned for the students to disperse, and then, he came in front of Fengjiu, and seeing her, he could not help but smile. The dean knows that you have come back, and is waiting for you at the main peak. You come with me. Fengjiu nodded, and followed him to the main peak. Seeing Fengjiu follow the vice dean to the main peak, the people behind were still talking about it. Did you notice that Fengjiu seems to be different this time? I also feel it, as if it is different. He is just standing there without speaking, but there is a very obvious strong aura coming from his body. Didn't he already enter the Jindan stage? The aura coming from his body is definitely different. Speaking of which, his advancement is really fast. How long has it been since he entered the Jindan stage, while we are still stuck in the same place? This person cannot be compared to others. Comparing oneself to others will only lead to death. While the students were talking, on the 2 mountain peaks, Nietang and Ouyang Xiu did not approach, but stood on the mountain peak and looked at the red figure from afar. Nietang's heart was very complicated. Regarding Fengjiu, he thought, if he did not use such extreme means, maybe things would be different now. Now that he had experienced so many things, he no longer had the thought of occupying her. He knew that she was not an ordinary woman, she was unparalleled. Even men would feel ashamed of their inferiority. Such a woman, he was not worthy of her. In his mind, he inexplicably thought of that cold and austere figure, that man who exuded the domineering aura of a king, perhaps, was her final destination. But Ouyang Xiu thought differently from him. Looking at the red figure, at this time, his heart was only filled with admiration. From his initial dissatisfaction to this moment, he had to admit that Fengjiu had convinced him wholeheartedly. Even though Nietang was stronger than him, he had never submitted to him. However, Fengjiu was different. Everything he did shocked him and made him feel incredulous. On the other side, Fengjiu, who had arrived at the main peak, saw the dean sitting at the stone table brewing tea. She stepped forward and bowed. "Dean. Sit." The dean gestured and handed her a cup of tea. Looking at Fengjiu, who was as radiant as ever, he smiled and said, "You've worked hard outside for more than a year." "No, I'm just looking around. It's an eye-opener." She took the tea and looked at the dean and the vice dean. "Dean, vice dean, I actually came back to bid farewell to the 2 of you." "You are going back?" the dean asked. He wasn't surprised at all. She did not belong here, she would have to go back sooner or later. "Yes, I plan to return to the Phoenix dynasty to see my family. After that, I may leave here and go to the 8 great empires." She told the 2 of them her plan. Chapter 12:13. I know. She nodded and listened to him as if he was an elder teaching her. After half an hour, she got up and went to the Immortals' Cave. In the future, she would not come to the 6-star academy, so she had to see if Xiao He, who was guarding the Immortals' Cave, wanted to go back to the forest. Sitting on the flying feather, she went back to the Immortals' Cave. When Tun Yun came out of the space, he directly jumped down from the flying feather and landed on the ground. When the big black bear saw this, it immediately rushed out and excitedly circled around Tun Yun. Ao! A happy roar sounded out, and Fengjiu came down from the flying feather. Xiao Hei! Fengjiu called out, and looked at the big black bear that rushed in front of her, and rubbed against her leg. Seeing this, she chuckled and patted its head. We are leaving, and will not come back here in the future. Do you want to go back to the forest? Ao ao. It roared, its voice was low, and its big bear head fiercely shook. Not going back. Fengjiu came to the tree and sat down, and said, if you don't want to go back, then come home with me. At that time, you can go and guard the house for me, or not, you are so big, can't you shrink a bit? Ao. It roared, stood up and turned around, the spiritual power in its body surged, and the airflow formed a whirlpool that directly surrounded it, and when the whirlpool dissipated, it appeared in front of Fengjiu. Seeing that it could really shrink, Fengjiu's eyes lit up, and looked at the big black bear that was standing in front of her, and said, smaller. Hence, the big black bear turned around again, and then stood there in a daze, staring blankly at Fengjiu. When she told it to be smaller, it turned around again. It turned around several times in a row until it finally became a mini black bear, standing there foolishly, as if it was dizzy from all the spinning and would collapse at any time. Fengjiu's eyes were filled with red hearts as she looked at it. Wow, so you can really be this small. Xiao Hei, you're so cute like this. Fengjiu picked it up. It was so soft and furry that she couldn't bear to let it go. Forget it. If you can become so small, then you should stay by my side in the future. She changed her mind again. She felt that she couldn't resist such a cute little bear. Tun Yun, who was lying at the side, wagged its tail when it saw this. It turned its eyes and glanced at its master. It realized that its master seemed to like furry little animals very much. Its original form was obviously very majestic and extraordinary, but its master liked its current puppy-like appearance. It could only recover its original form during battle. Normally, it could only appear in this small form when it was by its master's side. It was certain that if it recovered its original form, it would be able to keep its master in the Phoenix dynasty and not by her side. However, with its master's hobby like this, if it encountered any more furry little things in the future, it would probably keep them by her side. It was certain that this little bear wouldn't be the last one. Come, come, I'll give you a truth pill. This is good stuff. After eating it, even if you don't have a contract, you can still speak. She took out a pill from her space, and put it in her palm for Xiao Hei to eat. Xiao Hei smelled the pill's fragrance and went forward. It stuck out its tongue and swallowed the pill. Chapter 12-14. She stroked Little Black's head as she comforted it. She could feel that it was uncomfortable due to the effects of the medicine in her arms. She listened to it growl until its tense body relaxed not long after. Little Black, how is it? Say something. She stroked its head and looked at it expectantly. Ah. The little black bear opened its mouth and let out a sound like a human. Then it stared blankly at Fengjiu. Seeing this, Fengjiu laughed and rubbed its head. Okay, I know you're dumb. It's fine as long as you can talk. You don't have to be like Old White and talk non-stop. She stood up and looked at the place and sighed. I've been living here for a while. After leaving today, I don't think I'll have the chance to come back again. As she said this, she suddenly thought of something and was a little surprised. That's right, why haven't I seen Yi Jing? Guan Shilin was fine, but the dean said that there was no news of him since he left. She was thinking of going to the black market to ask, but why hasn't she seen Yi Jing since she came back? Thinking of this, she brought the two beasts and sat on Flying Feather to the spiritual academy to ask. Yi Jing. She was called back by her family a few months ago. I heard that she went back to get married, but I don't know what happened. A teacher said. Went back to get married. Fengjiu was stunned, I didn't hear that she had someone she liked. It said that it's a family marriage. I'm not too sure about this either. The people who came to pick her up said that it's a family marriage. But I saw that Yi Jing seemed unwilling, but I don't know why she followed them back. This is a family matter and a private matter. As teachers, it's not good for us to ask. Hearing this, Feng Jiu nodded and bowed before taking his leave. Only then did he leave the academy and head towards the black market in the city. She didn't know that after she left, Nietang and Ouyang Xiu both found the dean and planned to report to the One-Star Academy in advance. They knew that she would go to the 8 great empires, and they would also go. When he heard that Feng Jiu had come, the black market's president quickly came out to greet her. After she sat down, the black market's president smiled and said, "Young Master Feng, I've been waiting for you for a long time." "Oh. You've been waiting for me?" She slightly raised her eyebrows and looked at him. "Ha ha ha, I don't have anything to do, it's like this, young Master Guan had sent a letter to me, because I knew that you were not in the 6-Star Academy, I had placed the letter here, now that you have come, I can finally give the letter to you." Saying that, he took out the letter that he had placed in front of him and handed it to her. "Here it is." Seeing this, Feng Jiu took the letter and said with a smile, "I came here this time to ask if there was any news about him. I didn't expect him to send you a letter." As she spoke, she opened the letter and read it. The letter didn't say much, it just told her that he had found some clues about his father's whereabouts while he was out. He wouldn't be back for a while, so she didn't have to worry. Knowing that he was fine, she was relieved. After all, she hadn't heard any news about him for so long. Now that the letter came back, it was enough. She put away the letter and said, "I'm going back to the Phoenix Dynasty. If you have any letters for me, you can send them over there." Chapter 12-15. Don't worry. If there is any news in the future, I will send it to the Phoenix Dynasty. He smiled and said, "Young Master Feng is leaving, so am I. I hope there will be a chance to see young Master Feng again in the future." "There will be a chance." She smiled. After sitting in the black market for a while and chatting with him, she got up and left the city. Outside the city, Leng Shuang and the others were already waiting there. When they saw her coming out, they went up to greet her, "Master. Let's go." She took out the flying ship and brought everyone on board. Then, they flew into the sky. A few days later, when the flying ship landed outside the city and was put away, Feng Jiu and the others asked, "Master, where are we going?" Since 2 days ago, Master had changed the route back. This was not the way back to the Phoenix Dynasty, so where were they going? "I came to see a friend before going back," she said, then said to them, "Let's go." After entering the city, Luo Yu and Su Shan, "Go ask around about Yi Jing. We will wait for you at the inn." "Yes." The 2 people who were called out responded. After entering the city, they went to the nearest inn, while the 2 of them asked around in the city. When they entered the inn, the innkeeper hurriedly came out to greet them personally. He invited Feng Jiu in with a smile. Leng Hua went up and booked a few rooms. Feng Jiu went up to the room on the 2nd floor and waited for the 2 to return. Leng Shuang and Leng Hua served in the room, while the Phoenix guards guarded the door. After an hour, Su Shan and Luo Yu returned. "Master." The 2 of them bowed and reported, "The Yi family is an aristocratic family in this city. Yi Jing is the eldest daughter of the Yi family, the daughter of the head of the family. This marriage is not an alliance between the families, but the crown prince of the imperial family wants to take Yi Jing as his concubine." Under the pressure of the imperial family, the Yi family agreed. However, ever since she returned, Yi Jing has been seriously ill, which is why the marriage has been delayed until now. However, the imperial family has given the final order that the marriage must be held in 3 days. Feng Jiu, who was sitting at the table, rested her chin on one hand and tapped the table with the other. After hearing the two reports, she sneered, "Another bully." As soon as she finished speaking, she stood up and said, "Ling Shuang and Ling Hua, come with me to the Yi clan. The rest of you can wait at the inn." "Yes," they replied. Ling Shuang and Ling Hua followed behind Feng Jiu towards the Yi family, while Feng Wei and the others stayed in the inn. Although they didn't know where the Yi clan was, they found a random person on the street and asked for directions. The three of them arrived in front of the Yi clan's main gate. Ling Hua went forward and knocked on the door. The one who answered the door was an old man. After looking at the people outside and seeing that they were unfamiliar faces, he asked, "Who are you looking for?" "We are looking for eldest Miss Yi Jing." Ling Hua said warmly. "You are?" The old man was surprised. "My master is a friend of eldest Miss Yi. His surname is Feng. Please pass on the message. Eldest Miss Yi will know." "Oh, so it's like that. Then please come in." The old man opened the door and invited the three of them in. After leading them to the living room, he said to Feng Jiu, "Young master, my family's young miss is seriously ill. I'm afraid she can't meet guests. How about this? This old servant will invite master and madam over." Feng Jiu wanted to say that he could directly bring her to see Yi Jing, but after thinking about it, she didn't say it. She only nodded and said, "Sorry to trouble you." Chapter 12-16. A red-robed young master. Jing, her's friend. In the main courtyard, Yi clan head was slightly surprised after hearing the housekeeper's words. At this time, someone actually came to look for his daughter. It was strange. Since their Yi clan's two elders failed to advance and fell, the two most promising elders to advance to the Yuanying stage died. The power of the Yi clan was not as good as before, and their Yi clan was getting worse day by day. In the past, those who said that they were good friends avoided them one by one, especially after the royal family put pressure on his daughter to take her as a concubine. He tried to ask for their help, but those friends avoided him, which made his heart cold. Although he knew that human nature was selfish, he thought that his best friends would not be like that, and those he had helped before would not be like that. However, it was only after one failure that he realized that those old friends and family friends of the past were just people who were good at talking. His daughter was helpless. In order to take care of the whole family, she had to agree to this marriage, but her whole body fell ill because of excessive worry, and became more and more haggard day by day. Because of this, his wife cried all day long, and he, as the head of the family, was helpless. Yes, that young master is very handsome, and seems to be the same age as the eldest young miss. The housekeeper said respectfully. Could it be a friend of Jing, hers in the 6-star academy? Thinking of this, Yi clan head said, "I will go and take a look first, don't tell the eldest young miss." "Yes." The housekeeper responded and followed the clan head out. Coming to the front living room, as soon as he walked in, he saw a red-robed young man sitting there drinking tea. When he saw the young man, Yi clan head could not help but be startled, because this young man was really outstanding. His temperament was unparalleled, his face was handsome, and his body had a noble aura. Even the children of the royal family could not compare. Seeing this, he stepped forward. "I don't know who this young master is. My surname is Feng, my name is Jiu, I am Yi Jing's friend, this must be the Yi clan head." Feng Jiu stood up and cupped his hands in salute. "It is this Yi, young master Feng, please sit down." Seeing the young man's magnanimous demeanor and every move of his, she couldn't help but be secretly surprised. After inviting him to sit down, she said, "My daughter is seriously ill and couldn't come out to greet you. It's really rude of me. I hope young Master Foam won't blame me." Because this was only a 6th-ranked country, although the news of Fengjiu's ghost doctor had spread among the upper-ranked countries and influential families, this 6th-ranked country had not received the news or the portrait. Therefore, this Yi family head did not know that the young man in front of him was the famous ghost doctor. "No, Yi Jing and I are best friends. I don't care about such empty formalities, she said with a smile. Seeing this, Yi family head was slightly surprised and asked, I wonder how young Master Feng and my daughter met. Is young Master Feng also a student of a 6-star academy? Yes, we met in the 6-star academy. Yi Jing is a magnanimous and upright person, I admire her very much. Some time ago, I was away from the academy and did not return to the academy. Recently, when I went back, I found out that she had returned home. It was said that she came back to get married, so I wanted to come and see her, but I did not expect to hear that she was ill. Hearing this, Patriarch Yi was relieved. It turned out that he was Jing Er's friend from the academy. A friend that she knew from the academy specially came here to see her. Chapter 12-17. Yes, I heard. She looked at Master Yi and said, I want to see Yi Jing. Is it convenient? Young Master Feng is my daughter's best friend, and you came all the way here. Of course it's fine. He stood up and gestured to Fengjiu, please follow me. Okay. She responded and followed him to the backyard. Leng Xuan and Leng Hua followed behind. Fengjiu, who followed Master Yi to the backyard, admired the scenery in the Yi residence while Master Yi secretly observed the youth beside him. At first, he thought that this young man came here to see his daughter because he liked her. However, looking at his expression, it didn't seem like it. It was as he said, he was only a close friend of his daughter. However, between men and women, was there such a thing as best friends? Even if there was, it was probably very little. Along the way, he pretended to ask casually, I wonder where young Master Feng is from. I'm from the Phoenix dynasty. She turned around and smiled at him. Oh. Phoenix dynasty. I've heard of this before. It's said that this Phoenix dynasty rose from a 9th-ranked country to a 6th-ranked country in a short 2 to 3 years. It's a powerful country. Hearing this, she smiled and said, yes, the Phoenix dynasty is not only powerful, but also has a good location in many scenic spots. If Master Yi has the chance to come to the Phoenix dynasty in the future, I will personally welcome you. Personally welcome him? Master Yi was surprised when he heard this. These words were too strange. He was the master of the Yi family. This young Master Feng and his daughter were of the same generation. If he really had the chance to go there, then the person who would welcome him should be young Master Feng's father. Why did he say that he would personally welcome him? Although it was strange, he didn't ask. He just smiled and nodded, okay, if I have the chance in the future, I will definitely visit the Phoenix dynasty. The two chatted as they walked. Soon, they arrived at Yi Jing's courtyard. The two entered the courtyard and Master Yi said to Fengjiu, young Master Feng, please wait a moment. As he spoke, he personally knocked on the door. A maid came to open the door. Seeing that it was Master Yi, she quickly bowed, greetings, Master. Is Madam also in young Miss' room? He asked. Yes, Madam is inside with Miss, the maid said. Go in and tell the young Miss that Master Feng is here to see her. He gestured for the servant girl to go in. Then, he turned to Fengjiu and gestured, young Master Feng, please. Fengjiu nodded slightly and walked inside with him. As soon as they entered, they heard Yi Jing's weak but pleasantly surprised voice. Young Master Feng. Is it Fengjiu? It's me. She answered from outside and walked in. She saw a haggard and sorrowful-looking beautiful woman sitting by the bed. She was helping Yi Jing, who was struggling to sit up. Seeing this, she gestured, you don't have to get up. Your body is weak. Just lie down. Young master, you are. The beautiful woman looked at Fengjiu and inquired. Fengjiu greets Madam Yi. I am Yi Jing's friend. She bowed slightly. Yes, he is Yi Jing's friend at the academy. Master Yi walked in and said. Yi Jing was very happy to see Fengjiu. She seemed to be more energetic. She took Fengzhou's hand and asked, "Fengzhou, why are you here?" "I'm really happy. I didn't expect to see you again." Chapter 12:18. Jing, this, you. Mother Yi looked at her daughter holding the young master's hand and didn't know what to say. Could it be that Qing Xian already had a sweetheart? Was it this red-clothed young master? No wonder even though she agreed to marry the crown prince as a concubine, she fell ill. So it was because of lovesickness? Thinking of this, her eyes couldn't help but warm up and tears fell down again. Her poor daughter. Jing, how can you hold young Master Feng's hand? This isn't proper. Father Yi said. Seeing that young Master Feng didn't pull his hand away and even held his daughter's hand, he couldn't help but stare straight. This young man was too bold. He actually dared to touch his daughter in front of them. This brat, if he didn't see it with his own eyes, he really wouldn't be able to tell. "It's okay, we often did this in the academy," Fengzhou said without thinking. As soon as her voice fell, she saw Father Yi and Mother Ye's stunned expression and froze for a moment. Then she reacted and couldn't help but laugh. Yes, they didn't know she was a woman. They thought she was a man taking advantage of their daughter. You too. Yi family head, I'm actually a woman. I like to dress as a man. Yi Jing knows that I'm like a sister to her. Fengzhou chuckled and generously told them she was a woman. You're a woman. Father Yi and Mother Yi were very stunned. Looking at this elegant young man, he actually said he was a woman. She nodded, it's the real deal. Father, Mother, Fengzhou is a woman. You don't have to worry about her taking advantage of me, cough. Yi Jing smiled, but after a few words, she coughed. Okay, I won't talk first. Mother Yi looked at her worriedly. Let me take a look, Fengzhou said. She stepped forward and sat down on the bed to check her pulse. Mother Yi couldn't help but look at Fengzhou. She secretly thought, she really knew medicine. However, whether she knew it or not, she had good intentions, so she just let her be. Actually, it's not a big problem. It's just that you're too worried and your heart is filled with depression. She smiled and withdrew her hand. I'll write you a prescription. You'll be fine after 2 days. As for the matter you're worried about, I can help you solve it. You know. Yi Jing looked at her. Otherwise I wouldn't come. She smiled and said, I heard about it from my mentor and wanted to come over to attend the wedding. Who knew that you would fall ill? I got someone to do some research and the whole story was made clear. You too, since you're in trouble, why didn't you come to me? Even if I'm not here, my people can still solve this problem. Hearing this, a warm current flowed through her heart. I didn't want to trouble you. After all, this is related to my family's matter. We don't have to be. It's not like it's the first day we met. She chuckled. The two of them spoke one sentence after another. The Yi family couple was a little confused as they listened. What the hell was going on? Why can't they understand? At this time, Fengzhou turned to Father Yi and smiled. Father Yi, I'll have to trouble you to prepare paper and ink. I'll write a prescription for Yi Jing and then go to the pharmacy to get the medicine. Chapter 12:19. So it's like this. Then find someone to take me there. I'll go get some medicine for you. Hearing this, Yi family head looked towards Yi Jing. Yi Jing smiled and nodded. Father, you take Fengzhou there. Knowing that her parents were worried, she added, her medical skills are very good. Young Master Feng, no, Miss Feng, please come this way. Yi family head made a gesture of invitation. Fengzhou followed him outside and saw Ling Shuang and Ling Hua waiting in the courtyard. She said to Yi family head, wait a moment. She walked towards Ling Shuang and handed her a command medallion, saying, "Make a trip to the black market and tell them to deal with this matter." "Yes." Ling Shuang replied and left after receiving the token. Yi family head didn't hear what they were talking about, only faintly hearing something like, "Take care of the black market," so he didn't ask and took Fengjiu to the medicine storehouse. At the same time, Madame Yi asked, "Jing, where is this Fengjiu from?" "She's the princess of the Phoenix dynasty. With her here, I don't think I need to marry that crown prince as a concubine." Saying this, she smiled from the bottom of her heart. She knew that as long as Fengjiu was willing to help, her family's problems would be easily solved. Madame Yi was surprised and didn't quite believe it, but seeing her daughter's expression, she didn't say anything else. She thought to herself, "I'll go back and tell master about this and see what's going on." After Fengjiu got some medicine for Yi Jing, she let the servants boil it and went to the room to chat with her. Father Yi and Mother Yi went back to the main courtyard first. At the same time, when the black market saw Ling Shuang come with the token, they were surprised. After welcoming her in, the black market's president personally asked for the reason. After knowing what the ghost doctor wanted them to do, he immediately sent an elder to the palace. "Miss Ling Shuang, I've already sent someone to deal with this matter. Tell the ghost doctor not to worry, this isn't a big problem," the president of the black market said. Looking at the ice beauty with a cold face, he thought for a while and asked, "Miss Ling Shuang, is the ghost doctor in the Yi mansion now?" "It's true that mistress is in the Yi residence, but she doesn't like to be disturbed." "You don't have to go. Just do your job well," Ling Shuang said. He bowed to the president of the black market and said, "I have to report back. Goodbye." "All right, I'll see you off, Ling Shuang," the president of the black market said as he walked her out personally. After they left, a middle-aged man beside the black market president asked in confusion, "President, even though the ghost doctor is someone with a level 1 black order, we have to do things for him just because he wants us to. Isn't this a little too much?" Hearing that, the black market president turned around and glanced at him coldly. He growled, "What do you know? How many people do you think hold a level 1 black order in each country? What's more, is this someone else? This is the ghost doctor, and the pills she refines are only auctioned off in our black market. Do you know how much benefit she has given to our black market just based on this point alone?" Chapter 12:20. Hearing this, the middle-aged man was slightly surprised. Was the status of the ghost doctor in the black market so high? On the other side, Yi Mansion since Fengjiu came, Yi Jing's courtyard from time to time came out of the two's laughter, and the originally somewhat oppressive atmosphere was thus relieved. When Father Yi and Mother Yi came to the courtyard and heard the laughter coming from inside, they couldn't help but look at each other and walked inside. When they came to the inner room, they saw their daughter sitting on the bed and Fengjiu sitting on the bed. They didn't know what they were talking about, but from time to time, they would laugh. "Father, Mother." When Yi Jing saw the two of them, she called out, "We heard your laughter before we came in." Lord Yi said to Fengjiu, "Miss Feng, I've prepared lunch in the courtyard. It's all home-cooked dishes. I hope you don't dislike it." "No, home-cooked dishes are delicious," Fengjiu said. "Then please, I've asked people to take out the precious wine and invite Miss Feng to drink 2 cups. Then, he said to the madam beside him, "Let the maid help Jing, or get up and help her out for lunch. The more people there are, the more lively, and she will be more energetic. Well, you two go first. We'll come later." Madame Yi said and let the two go to the courtyard to sit first. She let the maid come forward to help. The two went outside, and Leng Hua came to stand behind her. Lord Yi poured a cup of wine for Fengjiu. "Try it, this is my collection of spirit wine, and the aftertaste is relatively strong." "Good." Fengjiu responded, picked up the wine cup and took a sip. The taste was mellow, and a breath of spiritual power flowed along the throat into the body. The taste is mellow, the spiritual power is rich, it is indeed a rare wine. Drink a few more cups if you like. Today, I've asked the kitchen to make some wine that can be a dish. Please. He gestured. Fengjiu was not polite. He picked up the chopsticks and picked up a mouthful of meat to eat with the wine. Not long after, Madame Yi helped Yi Jing out, and the two came to the table and sat down. Yi Jing had been lying in bed for months due to illness. She rarely came out to bask in the sun. The whole person looked a little pale, as if a gust of wind could blow her down. Yi Jing, your body is not suitable for lying in bed all the time. You should go out more often, and your body will recover faster. Fengjiu poured her a cup of wine. This wine is good, you can drink it. Seeing this, Yi Jing took a sip. She didn't care, but her parents were a little worried that she couldn't stand the strong wine. Just 2 cups will do. This is not bad. It can disperse depression and promote blood circulation. Fengjiu said. Seeing that she finished a cup, he poured another cup for her. Seeing that her face was dyed with a layer of red, he picked up some food for her to eat. Father Yi originally wanted to stop, but seeing that his daughter's face looked a lot better after drinking 2 cups, he didn't say anything. He just picked up some food for her to eat, while chatting with Fengjiu. Until the meal came to an end. At this time, the housekeeper rushed in from outside. Lord, His Highness the Crown Prince has come, he is waiting in the front hall. Hearing this, the originally good atmosphere suddenly changed. Father Ye's face sank, and his body emitted a suppressed anger. Needless to say, the Crown Prince must have come to urge the marriage. This was simply too much. He said 3 days, but he still came at this time. Chapter 12:21. Yi Jing glanced at Fengjiu and saw her nod with a smile. She then smiled and said to her father, Father, you go take a look first. You guys eat. I'll be back soon. He stood up and went out with the housekeeper. Yi Jing held her mother's hand and smiled gently. Mother, don't cry. This crown prince should be here to cancel the marriage. Ah. How is that possible? He must be here to urge the marriage. Madame Yi thought of her daughter's poor health, and this crown prince still came to urge the marriage. He originally said that he would come 3 days later, but now he came again before the time was up. He should just be here to apologize. Yi Jing's marriage is not going to happen. Fengjiu said with a smile, thinking that the black market people were really efficient. After hearing the two's words, Madame Yi couldn't help but stare blankly. She felt that it was a little unbelievable. But looking at her daughter and Fengjiu's expression, it seemed like this was the case. She couldn't help but feel moved and looked at Fengjiu. Could it be that you were talking about this before? This Fengjiu actually had the ability to make their crown prince cancel the marriage in such a short time and not make trouble for them. Was this real or fake? The two nodded and smiled in response. On the other side, in the front living room, Lord Yi looked at the crown prince, who had brought large and small bags of things to the door. He said that he was here to apologize and cancel the marriage. He said that his father would announce this matter tomorrow morning and compensate his daughter. He could only feel his head buzzing. Although he still maintained the dignity of the head of the family, his heart was beating like a drum. He couldn't figure out what was going on. It wasn't until he heard the last part of the crown prince's story that he understood the cause of the matter. Was it the ghost doctor who asked the black market people to help them solve this matter? But their Yi family didn't know the ghost doctor. That ghost doctor's name was known all over the country, but they didn't even know what the ghost doctor looked like. They had never come into contact with the ghost doctor. Why would the ghost doctor help them? Patriarchy, what happened before was my fault. Please forgive me and don't bother with me. The crown prince looked at the Yi family head in front of him, paused, and said, Yi family head, how do you know the ghost doctor? Since you know the ghost doctor, you should have said it earlier. Then, there wouldn't have been so many problems. This. Lord Yi glanced at the crown prince and saw that he was probing him, so he said, I didn't expect things to turn out like this, but it's good that the marriage is cancelled. My daughter is seriously ill in bed, it's really inappropriate to discuss marriage. As he spoke, he stood up and said, let me send your highness off. There's no need. I won't trouble patriarchy to send me off. The royal highness waved his hand as he spoke. After glancing at the Yi family head, he said, I hope that the Yi family head can ask the young miss to put in a good word for me in front of the ghost doctor. With that, he turned and left. Hearing this, the head of the Yi family was slightly startled, as if he had thought of something. His eyes widened in disbelief. Ghost doctor. Red-robed young master. Fengjiu. Chapter 12:22. Thinking of this, he suppressed the excitement in his heart and hurriedly went to the backyard, intending to ask for an explanation. In the backyard, the few people who had finished eating had already cleared the table and replaced it with freshly cut fruits. A large fruit platter was placed in the middle of the table, made up of several different colored fruits. After hearing the two's words, Madame Yi was unable to suppress her joy because the people around her had come to tell her that His Highness the Crown Prince had come with gifts to apologize and that the marriage had been cancelled. This news made her so happy that she wanted to cry. Fengjiu, have some fruit. Madame Yi used a bamboo stick to give her a piece of fruit. You've helped our family a lot, we don't even know how to thank you. Fengjiu smiled and took it. There's no need to say thank you, Yi Jing is my friend. Yes, our Jing is really lucky to have a friend like you. She nodded her head and said with a smile. Mother, don't be like this, you'll make Fengjiu feel uncomfortable. If you really want to thank her, go back and personally make some of your best dishes for Fengjiu. She'll definitely be happy. Yi Jing smiled and said, then looked at Fengjiu, you don't know, my mother's cooking is very good, but she doesn't cook easily. I love good food the most. Since that's the case, I'll have to trouble Auntie Yi. She smiled and her eyes narrowed, even changing Madame Yi to Auntie Yi. It's no trouble, no trouble. Madame Yi also smiled happily, thinking that Fengjiu was really a good child. Not only was he outstanding, but he was also very capable. Moreover, he was so amiable and easygoing, not putting on airs at all. Master. The two maidservants outside the courtyard called out respectfully, letting the people in the courtyard know that Master Yi had returned. Master, how was it? Madame Yi couldn't hide her joy as she looked at him. She knew that the marriage was cancelled because of Fengjiu. As for the details, she didn't know. However, Yi family head did not answer her. Instead, he came to the table and bowed to Fengjiu. This Ye's eyes are blind. I didn't know that the guest in my house was the ghost doctor. I hope you don't blame me for my rudeness. As soon as his voice fell, he continued, here, this Yi solemnly thanks the ghost doctor for your help. Our Yi family will definitely remember today's kindness in our hearts. At the same time, just as he was bowing in salute, he was helped up by an invisible force. Uncle Yi, you don't have to do this. Fengjiu said, but did not accept his bow. Instead, he stood up and said with a smile, Yi Jing is my friend. How can I not help when my friend is in trouble? Uncle Ye's words are too serious. Yi family head nodded excitedly. After asking her to sit down, he also sat down and said, just now, the crown prince came and personally came to apologize. I also learned of Miss Feng's identity as the ghost doctor from his mouth. He didn't expect that the ghost doctor would come to his house. Even more, he didn't expect that this ghost doctor was his daughter's friend. Moreover, it was a woman. I'll let the people from the black market deal with it. It's just a matter of a word. As she said this, she saw Ling Xuan come in from outside. Master, the matter is done. As he spoke, he handed over the black order. N. Fengjiu responded and took it. Chapter 12:23. That's what the people outside call me. She smiled and nodded. Heavens! Madame Yi couldn't hide her shock as she covered her mouth and exclaimed, You're actually the ghost doctor. Fengjiu smiled and said, the ghost doctor is also a person, there's no need to be so shocked. Saying this, she looked at Yi Jing who was sitting quietly and looking at them with a smile and said, I'm planning to go home, do you want to stay with me at my home for a few days? Hearing this, Yi Jing's eyes lit up, can I? Of course you can, I just don't know if Uncle Yi and Aunt Yi will be at ease. She smiled and looked at the two. Relax, of course we're at ease. Following the ghost doctor out, what was there to be worried about? That was something that many people wished for. Then I'll be bothering you at your home for the next 2 days. When Yi Jing's body gets better, we'll set off. Just in time, we can take advantage of these 2 days to properly taste Aunt Ye's cooking. Good, I'll definitely make something different for you every day. She said with a happy smile. Yi family head watched from the side and also smiled. He felt that the dark clouds above their heads had dissipated with Fengjiu's arrival. The entire Yi family's oppressive atmosphere had also eased because of this, returning to its former relaxed state. Just like this, Fengjiu stayed at the Yi family. As for Feng Wei and the others, they stayed at my inn. After staying at the Yi family's couple treated her very warmly. Madame Yi personally cooked every meal and made all of her best dishes. It really was as she said, there was no repetition in every meal and the taste was very good. The news that the ghost doctor was in the Yi family had somehow spread. Those who had previously avoided Yi family head all came to visit with gifts after receiving the news. However, this time, Yi family head didn't see them and tactfully refused to see them. He only said that he had an important guest and wouldn't see anyone else. Even if people saw this, they couldn't do anything and secretly regretted it. If they had known earlier, they wouldn't have alienated the Yi family and made it so difficult to enter the Yi family. Only, when did the Yi family's people have a relationship with the ghost doctor? Why didn't this kind of relationship spread out? It really was too strange. If the marriage between the Yi family and the royal family hadn't been cancelled, they wouldn't know that the ghost doctor was in the Yi family. In the garden of the house of Yi Fengjiu accompanied Yi Jing to walk in the courtyard. After a day of taking medicine and the cancellation of the marriage, Yi Jing's spirit returned. Her weak body gradually recovered after taking a pill from Fengjiu. She could walk out of the courtyard and walk around the garden. Yi Jing, are you the only child in your family? Fengjiu asked the person holding the basket beside him as he plucked a flower and sniffed it. I have a younger brother, but he's not home. Yi Jing said and handed her the scissors in the basket. Let's cut some flowers and put them in the vase. Okay, I'll cut it. You just hold the basket. After Fengjiu took the scissors, he picked some flowers and cut one down. After trimming it a little, he handed it to her. Yi Jing took it and put it into the basket. She pointed at another flower and said, that one with a bud is also good. This one. Fengjiu's scissors moved, and a pink budding flower was handed to her. Okay. Yi Jing smiled happily, picking for her on the side. Fengjiu cut on the side. The two people talked from time to time and laughed. Chapter 12:24. Knowing that they were leaving today, the Phoenix guards at the inn had been waiting outside the Yi residence since early in the morning. When the Yi residence's doors opened, their master, dressed in red, walked out. Master. They called out in unison, bowed, and waited at the side. Fengjiu nodded in response. The Yi family couple, who came out to send them off, looked at the few imposing men. Seeing that they were all in high spirits and had an extraordinary aura, they couldn't help but secretly praise them. The people around the ghost doctor were also so outstanding. Each of them had a handsome face and an outstanding temperament. "Father, mother, you don't have to send me off. I'm with Fengjiu. You don't have to worry. Nothing will happen." Yi Jing stopped and said to her parents who were sending them off. We know. With Fengjiu by your side, we can rest assured." The Yi family couple replied. Then, they signaled the housekeeper to come forward and present the few gift boxes behind them. "This is a small gift. Don't decline it. If you decline it again, you'll really look down on us." The Yi family head said and asked the housekeeper to bring the things forward. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and said, "Uncle Yi is too polite. Since that's the case, then I won't decline it." Leng Hua, accept it. "Yes." Leng Hua replied. Then, he went forward to take the gift boxes and put them into his heaven-earth bag. "It's getting late. We'll take our leave," Fengjiu said with cupped hands and looked at Yi Jing. Yi Jing understood and said to her parents, "I'll be back after playing there for a while. Don't worry, we'll be leaving. Have a safe journey," the Yi family couple said. Then, they reminded Yi Jing of a few things. Then, the group headed out of the city. Just as they were about to leave the city, many people from the clans in the city rushed out with gifts in their hands. Before they could get close, they were stopped by the Phoenix Guards. Then, a spaceship appeared outside the city. "Let's go." Fengjiu gestured. After the group boarded the flying ship, they left the people below behind. Only then did they soar into the air and head in the direction of the Phoenix dynasty. In the faraway Xianyuan Empire of the Eight Great Empires, Xianyuan Mose stood by the window with his hands behind his back in a luxurious black robe outlined by dark cloud lines in a palace. Looking at the sky outside, he thought of the woman he missed. It was also the worry and longing in his heart that made him see the white clouds in the sky as a sly Fengjiu. In the white clouds, he seemed to see her smiling at him, and he seemed to hear that sly and clear voice calling out, "Uncle, uncle." His thin lips, which were originally slightly pursed, curled up imperceptibly as he thought of the person who pleased him, revealing a smile. That woman, what is she doing now? In the blink of an eye, more than 2 years had passed. The last time Ren Xiang had sent back the news that she had entered the Golden Core stage. Moreover, she had also completely changed the sacred land of the Two-Star Academy beyond recognition. Thinking of this, he could not help but shake his head. This woman was like this, no matter where she went, she would not be at peace and would not suffer losses. Even when she fell into his hands that year, she was still able to escape from his hands. She even stole his heart, making him think that he was gay. A 10-year agreement, how could this monarch make such a long agreement with her? Chapter 1225. Master. Hui Lang's voice traveled over, causing Xianyuan Mose, who was standing by the window, to come back to his senses and look at him. Hui Lang's body carried a strong smell of blood, and his entire body was filled with murderous intent. He was like a fierce wolf that had just returned from a fight, giving people a very fierce feeling. This subordinate has already annihilated the last point, a total of 242 people, not a single one escaped. He respectfully reported. Go back and tell them to stop after this matter, and try not to appear in front of the other forces. Rest for a while and wait for further orders. Xianyuan Mose ordered in a deep voice. Yes. Hui Lang responded, and seeing that his master had already turned around, he retreated. Since their master had returned, reorganized his forces, and defeated the enemy forces. Although they had experienced many things and dangers in these 2 years, but now, the crisis had been resolved, and the most important thing was that the 1,000-year cold poison in their master's body had been cured. This was what made them most happy. Without the 1,000-year cold poison tormenting their master, they did not have to worry about their master's health. And in these 2 years, the Holy Emperor had also relied heavily on their master, and most of the empire's affairs were handed over to their master. This made the subordinates very happy. In their hearts, their master was the Holy Emperor's most outstanding son, and was the most capable natural ruler. Only their master could make the empire stand above the other empires, rule the entire empire, and lead the empire to glory. Outside, he saw that Ing Yi had unknowingly appeared outside the hall, so he walked over and asked, "Master, how long have you been standing in front of the window in a daze? Are you thinking about the ghost doctor again?" Ing Yi glanced at him and said, "Aren't you asking the obvious?" Hearing this, Hui Lang scratched his head and said doubtfully, "I don't understand, what's there to think about? If I hadn't seen you for 10 years, I probably wouldn't have thought about it either." Hearing this, Ing Yi rolled his eyes and was somewhat speechless. "How is this the same?" "That's true, you're not a woman." Hui Lang nodded and said, seeing Ing Yi's face darken. Seeing this, he grinned and patted him on the shoulder. Okay, don't throw a tantrum like a woman, I'm just casually saying it, it's just a random analogy." It would have been better if he hadn't said this, but as soon as he did, Shadow One's face darkened and his eyes widened. Although his heart was burning with anger, he still said in a calm voice, "Grey Wolf, we haven't fought in a long time. Why don't we practice?" "Practice? Good. Let's go." He nodded and gestured for him to go first. Ing Yi glanced at him and walked forward. However, he had only taken a few steps when he heard a gust of wind behind him. He looked back and saw that Grey Wolf had already jumped over the wall and left from the other side. He could only hear his voice coming from the wind. Ha, do you think I'm stupid? Practice? Don't you just want to use a legitimate excuse to teach me a lesson? I won't give you a chance, I'm leaving first, you go practice with your own shadow." Hui Lang's voice spread with the wind, inside and outside the palace, and in the open and in the dark, could not help but twitch the corners of their mouths, but they did not say anything. Chapter 12:26. Ing Yi. Xianyuan Mo's voice came from inside. Ing, who was outside, immediately responded and went inside. "Master. There hasn't been any news from that side for the past few months. Go and ask what's going on." Xianyuan Mo turned around and looked at him. "I want the latest news from her." "Yes, your subordinate will go and ask right away." He responded and then retreated. He stood by the window for a while, then raised his hand to reveal the red string on his wrist. A trace of gentleness flashed across his deep black eyes. When he thought of her, his heart was filled with tenderness. On the other hand, Fengjiu, who was far away, was a little heartless. She played with Yi Jing along the way. Every time they arrived at a place, they would take advantage of the rest time to walk around. This journey back to the Phoenix dynasty, which originally took half a month, took an entire month. Until this day, the flying ship entered the Phoenix dynasty's imperial city. It flew over the city and arrived at the palace's main entrance. When the flying ship entered the imperial city, the Phoenix guards in the city quickly reported the news to the palace. They all knew that their master had returned. Even the commoners in the city looked up at the flying ship that suddenly appeared in mid-air and discussed in surprise. "Look, isn't this the ghost doctor's flying ship? It's the flying ship from back then. Is the ghost doctor back? Quick, let's go and take a look." The commoners in the city spoke in surprise and rushed towards the flying ship that was flying towards the palace. However, when they rushed to the palace's entrance, they only had time to see a red figure in the distance, surrounded by a crowd, heading towards the palace. Xiaojiu is back. Feng Xiao heard the Phoenix Guard's report and couldn't help but stand up in surprise. "Where is she?" "She's already entered the palace." "Have you informed the retired emperor?" he asked as he strode outside. "I've already sent someone to inform him." Hearing that, Feng Xiao ordered, "Get people to prepare. We'll set up a family banquet tonight to welcome Xiaojiu back." As soon as he finished speaking, he had already rushed forward. Seeing this, the Phoenix guard behind him quickly went to instruct his subordinates to do something before following him. Feng Xiao saw the dazzling red figure from afar. Seeing that his daughter had returned home, Feng Xiao's serious face couldn't help but break into a big smile. Xiao Jiu. Father. Feng Jiu quickly stepped forward, came to his side, hugged his arm, smiled a pair of eyes, handsome face full of joy and joy. Daddy, I can miss you. Ha ha ha, Daddy misses you too. Look at you. You've been gone for more than a year and you've only sent a letter back. It's really worrying. He patted her hand and looked at the woman beside her in surprise. This is Monarch. Yi Jing bowed and said warmly, I am Yi Jing, Feng Jiu's friend. Oh, so it's Xiao Jiu's friend. My daughter rarely brings friends back. I think you two must be very close. Feng Xiao said with a smile and nodded. I went to her house on the way back and then brought her back. I asked her to come here to play and accompany me. Feng Jiu said to Yi Jing, don't call my father Monarch. Just call him Uncle. I'll bring you to meet my grandfather and grandmother later and introduce them to you. Chapter 12:27. Little Feng. Little Feng. Before the person arrived, the voice arrived first. However, when Feng Jiu heard the voice, she was slightly surprised. The voice was as young as a man in his 20s. She couldn't find a trace of her grandfather's old affection. Instead, it was a youthful voice full of vitality. Although the voice was no longer the old and affectionate voice she was familiar with, the words, Little Feng, were full of familiarity. Just as she smiled and looked in the direction of the voice, she saw a figure rush over and arrive in front of her in the blink of an eye. Little Feng, why did you go back for so long? You left for more than a year and didn't even come back to visit. Grandfather was worried to death. Feng Sanyuan arrived in front of Feng Jiu and looked her up and down. After looking, he said with heartache, you've lost a lot of weight and you've become a lot darker. Did you not eat enough outside? Are you exposed to the wind and the sun? Look at you, you didn't stay at home and just had to go out. You can't even eat well outside and came back so thin. Feng Jiu couldn't help but laugh. Grandfather, it's not as exaggerated as you say. I'm still the same as before. I haven't changed much. How could that be? You're clearly thin and dark. As Feng Sanyuan spoke, he saw the woman next to him covering her mouth and laughing. He asked in surprise, who is this little girl? Did you bring her back? Grandfather Feng, I'm Yi Jing, Feng Jiu's friend. Yi Jing quickly bowed. She was very curious. Although she had heard from Feng Jiu that her grandfather looked even younger than her father, when she saw it with her own eyes, she still felt it was very inconceivable. In fact, in the cultivation world, there were many things like this. However, it was extremely rare in ordinary families. Even those who entered the nascent soul realm could at most recover to their middle age. It was rare for Feng Jiu's grandfather to recover to the peak of his youth. Cultivation was originally going against the heavens. For someone with a powerful cultivation like Xiao Ti, it wasn't strange for him to recover his youth. She had once heard from her father that their country was the same. In places like the 8 great empires, there were many cultivators who only chose cultivation partners when they were over 100 years old, or even 200 or 300 years old. Therefore, it was not strange for Grandpa Feng to remarry at the age of 60 or 70. So you're Feng girl's friend. Since you're already here, just have fun and treat this place as your own home. Feng Sanyuan said with a smile. Then, he turned to Feng Jiu and said, then you take good care of Yi Jing first. We'll set up a banquet tonight to welcome you all. Okay. Feng Jiu smiled and said, let's go see grandmother and little uncle first. Thus, they all went to the inner palace together. After visiting Su Shi first, Feng Jiu took out the gifts he brought for them and distributed them. They chatted for a while in the hall before going to rest. In the evening, Fengjiu changed into a white dress. The snow-white dress was simple and elegant. When it was on her body, it formed two different styles compared to when she was dressed in men's red. If she was dressed in men's red, she was as dazzling as the sun. Then, when she was dressed in white, she was as holy as the bright moon in the sky. Regardless of whether it was red or white, she was able to control it. When she wore it, she exuded a noble aura. Chapter 12:28. Fengjiu, you're so beautiful in women's clothing. She couldn't help but praise her. She went up and looked her up and down. She really couldn't believe that she was so charming in women's clothing. She was completely different from when she was dressed in men's clothing. Isn't it just the same? She gently smiled and put down her hand, saying, "All right, I'll take you around the palace. Then we'll go to the city to take a look." "All right." Yi Jing smiled and followed her to the palace. They strolled around and looked at the scenery. Then they left a message that they would be back before the family banquet. Only then did they leave the palace. After returning, Fengjiu arranged for the Feng Wei and the others to return to the Feng Manor. Even Su Shan and the others were the same. Now, only Ling Shuang and Ling Hua were following behind Fengjiu. Although the two of them weren't the most outstanding by Fengjiu's side, their loyalty couldn't be compared to others. Also, they had been by her side for the longest time and had experienced the most things with her. The two of them would only do as she ordered. They would never question or hesitate. This was one of the reasons why she brought them with her. Even though Fengjiu hadn't returned for a long time, when she appeared, the people in the city still recognized her. They all greeted her. Some of the people selling fruits even wanted to give her some fruits to eat. Yi Jing was very surprised. "Princess! Your Highness! Your Highness!" Pure voices filled with joy rang out. As she walked, the citizens all called out to her. Some of them even waved and shouted at her from afar. "Your Highness, you haven't come to our stall in a long time. Your Highness, our restaurant recently released a few new signature dishes. Your Highness." Yi Jing looked at Fengjiu, who was smiling and greeting everyone. She couldn't help but say, "The people in your city are really simple. This kind of situation can't be seen anywhere else. That's because my father used to be the general of the kingdom, and I used to wander around the city often, so the people in the city are familiar with us." Fengjiu chuckled. After walking for a while, he turned to Yi Jing and said, "Let me tell you, there are some stalls in our city that sell things that are more authentic than restaurants. I'll take you there to try them." She brought Yi Jing to a small stall that she used to frequent and ordered some snacks. While eating, she said to her, "Tomorrow, I'll take you to see my brother's house and the place where my family used to live. The two places are right next to each other." "Okay." She nodded and asked, "So, your brother isn't coming back?" "It's hard to say whether or not he will come back. But I believe that he will definitely go to the 8 great empires in the future. His talent is not bad, and he has been training outside. He has a lot of combat experience and his combat strength is strong." Saying that, she ate something and said, "But you, after going back this time, will you go to the 1-Star Academy to report?" "Well, I will go to the 1-Star Academy to report, but I don't know if I will be selected as a disciple by the academy. But I have to try." Yi Jing continued, "I'm also on the recommendation list. If it weren't for the matter at home, I would have already gone there." Chapter 12:29. The two of them ate some snacks and strolled around the imperial city. Seeing that the sky had darkened, they headed towards the imperial palace. When they returned to the imperial palace, the banquet had already been prepared. There was no one else present, only their family members. This time, Fengjiu even saw the child that she had brought back along the way, Yang Yang. Back then, the child was 4 years old. A few years later, he was already 7 years old. He was a little shy and stood behind her, peeking at her from time to time, but he didn't dare to come forward. Seeing this, she smiled and waved her hand, "Yang Yang, come here." Hearing this, he glanced at Feng Sanyuan. "Go on over." He smiled and gestured. The child happily walked forward and came to Fengzhou's side, bowing respectfully. "Princess." He recognized her. She was the kind-hearted older sister who had brought him here. "Do you still recognize me?" She rubbed his head and asked with a smile. "I recognize you." He was a little happy and a little shy. After glancing at Fengzhou, he quickly lowered his head. "You've grown a lot taller. Have you been cultivating and studying properly?" she asked. Hearing this, he raised his head and replied, "Yes, the monarch and the retired emperor have both taught me to protect little master in the future. And, that's my little uncle. You have to cultivate and study well. You have to protect him well in the future, okay?" In fact, it was good to arrange for him to be her little uncle's playmate. This child's physique was better than the average person's. If he cultivated, he would be faster in the future. If she could nurture him and let him grow up together with her little uncle, it would be extremely good for him and her little uncle. After all, growing up together would strengthen the bond between them. And, Yang Yang will. The little guy's face was full of seriousness. He looked at Fengzhou and nodded as if he was assuring her. "I'm going to Peach Blossom Cove tomorrow. You can come with me." His family probably hadn't seen him in a long time. Tomorrow was the perfect time to bring him over. Hearing this, the little guy's eyes lit up, but he was a little hesitant. "Can I go?" As he spoke, he couldn't help but look at Feng Xiao and his father. Seeing this, Feng Xiao smiled and said, "Princess wants you to go, so you should go." "Yes." He smiled happily. "There's no one else. You can sit next to me." Fengzhou gestured for him to sit down and eat. Because it was a family banquet, most of the talk was about what happened to Fengzhou outside. It was not until the night grew dark that everyone dispersed and went back to rest. The next morning, Fengzhou took Yi Jing, Leng Shuang, Leng Hua, and Yang Yang to the Peach Blossom Cove. They took a carriage to the Peach Blossom Cove. Even Tun Yun, Xiao He, and Lao Bai came out of the space and went together. Yi Jing raised her head and looked up the mountain. Looking from afar, she could see that the entire mountain was covered in red. "I lived here for a period of time in the past. It's quiet and secluded. It's excellent for cultivation or leisure. Most importantly, the peach blossoms here are very pleasing to the eye. Especially when the wind blows, the petals fall. It's like a rain of flowers. It's like a fairyland." Fengzhou walked forward. As he spoke, he looked at the peach blossoms. Returning to a familiar place and looking at the pleasing scenery, he couldn't help but relax. Chapter 12:30. That's fine too. But don't you need to go back to the palace? I'm already in the palace. Do you think I'm afraid I won't be able to see my family? Fengzhou chuckled. Besides, I saw them yesterday. It's fine for me to stay here for 2 days. If I come back for a long time, I'll stay here for a long time too. The two of them chatted as they walked up the mountain. Yang Yang and a few little beasts followed behind them. When they reached the top, she said to Yi Jing, "Walk around and take a look. I'll come and find you later." "Okay." Yi Jing replied and watched as she brought Yang Yang into the peach blossom forest. Seeing this, she walked around the forest and admired the scenery. On the other side, Fengzhou brought Yang Yang to a courtyard. Before they even got close, a few figures appeared. Yang Yang. The Zhao family members who had become ghost cultivators could already appear during the day. When they saw Yang Yang return with their master, they couldn't help but feel excited. "Master, thank you for bringing Yang Yang back to see us." They hurriedly thanked him after bowing. Fengjiu's gaze swept past them and he smiled. "It seems that your cultivation has also improved. That's good too. When I go back, I'll tell my father to let Yang Yang come and see you once a month." Hearing this, they couldn't help but look at each other and excitedly bowed again. "Thank you, Master." They knew that they were ghost cultivators and their cultivation wasn't very strong. If they stayed too close to Yang Yang or spent too much time with him, his yang qi would be depleted. Therefore, even though they had been in this place for a long time, they never went out to see him in the palace. "Grandfather, grandmother, father, mother, Yang Yang misses you." The little guy threw himself into his mother's arms. Although he felt cold, he was still very happy to see them. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled. "Your family must have a lot to talk about. I won't disturb you. I'll stay here with my friends for the next 2 days. Yang Yang will also stay here for 2 days. You can all have a good gathering." "Yes." They answered happily and watched as Fengjiu turned and left. Only then did they bring Yang Yang into the courtyard and ask him about his situation in the past 2 years. They stayed here for 2 days and returned to the imperial city at noon 2 days later. When they arrived in the city, Fengjiu took Yi Jing to see Guan Shilin's house. "This is my brother's home alone. Ever since he severed ties with the Guan family, he was the only one left. My brother has been looking for his father's whereabouts. He hopes that one day, he can bring his father back to the Guan family that he built single-handedly." "Princess! Princess!" Fengjiu led Yi Jing inside. When the guards and housekeepers saw her, they hurried forward to salute her. As Yi Jing listened to Fengjiu talk, she looked at the scenery in the house. She saw that nothing was ostentatious and everything was exquisite. However, such a big house didn't even have a master. She couldn't help but think, if Guan Shilin lived here alone, how lonely would he be? Although he hasn't found his father, he still has you as his younger sister and your family. He's not alone. She looked at Fengjiu and said. Chapter 1231. Seeing her stare at her with a smile, Yi Jing could not help but blush. "What are you staring at me for? You should go tell your brother about this." Yes, I will tell my brother." She gently smiled and brought her around the Guan manor before returning to the Feng manor. "After my father and the others moved into the palace, this has been my own manor. I let my people live here, so there must be people living here. If there is no one living here, it will be empty every time I come back. Also, my manor has a chef who is very good at cooking." She brought her into the Feng manor. After familiarizing her with the environment, she arranged a courtyard for her. When the people in the Feng manor saw that Fengjiu had returned, they were all very happy. Greetings of master could be heard from time to time. Especially when the people in the kitchen knew that their master had returned, they began to get busy, planning to make some delicious food for their master. The two directly settled down in the manor. When evening came, Fengjiu remembered that there was something she had not told her father, so she went into the palace. After finding her father, who was handling affairs in the palace, she dismissed the others in the hall and walked forward to call out, "Father! Xiaojiu, you disappeared again these past 2 days. I just heard the Feng guard say that you returned to the Feng manor. Are you planning on not living in the palace?" Feng Xiao put down the matters at hand and asked her. "Although the palace is pretty good, I still like living in the manor. After living there for a long time, I have feelings for it. Now that I've come back, of course I want to live in my previous courtyard." She smiled and arrived at his side, holding his hand. Hearing this, Feng Xiao helplessly shook his head. All right, as you wish. However, you've already left the palace, yet you still came to find father. Is there something you need?" There is something I need to say." She adjusted her expression and said, "In truth, I didn't tell you. I had the people in the black market ask about mother." Hearing this, Feng Zhao's expression froze. His heart jumped, and he asked with a bit of surprise, "And then? Was there any news?" This time, his daughter had returned and told them that she was already a nascent soul cultivator. Moreover, the fire phoenix had also entered adulthood. He was very happy about this. This meant that her strength had increased again. Even if they were not by her side to protect her outside, she could still deal with many unknown dangers. In the past, he had told her not to act rashly before she was strong enough and her wings were fully developed. However, things were different now. Not only was their Phoenix dynasty strong and prosperous, even their strength had increased. Moreover, their forces had expanded. In particular, Xiao Jiu's reputation as the ghost doctor was well known in the various countries. She had also entered the nascent soul stage at such a young age and was ranked as a powerhouse. With such strength, she was no longer afraid of the Shangguan family, a powerful family of elixirs that had existed for more than 100 years. Thinking of the woman he had been separated from for so many years, his heart ached. It was all his fault for being so useless that he and his wife had been separated for so many years. Chapter 1232. They're too hateful. Hearing his daughter's words, Feng Zhao clenched his fists and hammered them heavily. His voice was angry, his eyes were sharp, and his heart was boiling with anger. Thinking that his memories were sealed and his beloved woman was imprisoned, the anger in his heart burned fiercely. The Shangguan family had gone too far. It was fine if they treated him, but to be so cold-blooded and heartless to their daughter, he really felt sad for Wanrong that she had such cold-blooded relatives. "There's one more thing," Feng Zhou said, looking at her angry father. "The Shangguan family knows father's identity and that I'm your daughter. When I was there, they wanted to acknowledge me on the street, but I ignored them." "They know?" Feng Zhao asked, frowning. "They didn't do anything to you?" "They can't do anything to me. Today, I came to find father to tell you my plan." She said slowly, "Mother is no longer in the Shangguan family. She has been accepted as a disciple by an alchemist called Dan Yangzi in a sect called Dan Yangzi in the 8 Great Empires. Not to mention that mother is no longer in the Shangguan family. Even if she is, such a family and relatives really don't have the information to establish a relationship with us. But I think the Shangguan family won't give up and will come to find father. They don't know that father has started everything, so at that time." "You mean, your mother is no longer here? She was taken away by an alchemist called Dan Yangzi?" Feng Zhao was a little startled. For a moment, he couldn't tell what he was feeling. More than 10 years had passed. Did she still remember him? Was she still the same as before? Would she still come back after going to the 8 Great Empires? She nodded and said, "Father, don't worry. I came back this time to tell you about this matter so that you can be on guard against the Shangguan clan. This time, I will go to the Dan Yang sect to look for mother in the 8 Great Empires. Don't worry. I will bring mother back for you." "I know. You don't have to worry about the Shangguan family." Feng Zhao nodded. He had already begun to think about how to deal with this matter. Seeing this, Feng Zhou didn't say anything more. Leaving him alone in the hall, he left the palace and went to the mansion. In the following days, as the ghost doctor's identity as the princess of the Phoenix dynasty was made public, people from various countries sent gifts one after another. Not only did people from various countries send generous gifts, but even some of the big clans also sent people to send gifts, all for the sake of befriending them. These things, after all, and the ghost doctor. LLL. LLL. She first made arrangements for the Phoenix Guards, instructing them to protect the Phoenix dynasty while she was away, and to not let anyone invade their empire's territory if. Fire Phoenix. With a soft call, a ray of light flashed out from the space and landed in front of her. Chapter 1233. Master. Fire Phoenix looked at her and revealed a joyful smile. He wanted to pounce over and hug her, but after thinking about it, he felt a little embarrassed. After all, he was already an adult now. He couldn't be hugged in her arms like when he was a child, with only a dudu covering his butt. Fengjiu looked at Fire Phoenix, who had turned into a teenager, and felt as if he was watching a child grow up. Ever since Fire Phoenix started to meditate, he had never come out. That time when she entered the nascent soul stage and became a nascent soul stage cultivator, he also finally entered adulthood. Looking at this Fire Phoenix, who was half a head taller than her, she couldn't hide the gentleness in her eyes. Fire Phoenix, I called you out because I have something to discuss with you. She looked at him and the smile on her face disappeared. You also know that I plan to go to the 8 great empires. But, I'm worried about the Phoenix dynasty. I'm worried about father and grandfather. Hearing this, Fire Phoenix's expression changed slightly. He asked, Master wants me to stay and protect the Phoenix dynasty and them? That's right. She nodded and said, You are the ancient divine beast Fire Phoenix. Our country is called the Phoenix dynasty. Back then, you were also born in the 9 volts forest. This is your home. If you were still an infant, it would be one thing. But now that you have successfully entered adulthood, I hope you can stay and be the Phoenix dynasty's divine beast protector. Divine beast protector. He looked at her and asked, Then what about Master? If I stay and protect the Phoenix dynasty, who will protect Master? If Master is in danger in the 8 great empires, who can save Master? This was what he was worried about. Perhaps Master could deal with everything alone here, but if he wasn't by her side in the 8 great empires, what would happen if Master was in danger? Thinking of this, he shook his head. I don't agree. Compared to protecting the Phoenix dynasty and Master's family, I want to protect Master more. Even if he stayed in the space to meditate and didn't come out, if Master was in mortal danger, he would be able to sense it and would naturally come out to save her. But if he really stayed here as Master said, then even if he felt that Master was in danger, he wouldn't be able to save her. No, if I meet someone I can't beat, I can run. She took a step forward and patted him on the shoulder, saying, If you're here to guard this place, I'll be more at ease. You can stay here and cultivate if you have nothing to do. I've thought about it, and it won't take long. When I come back, if there's nothing major here, you can come with me. What do you think? What if you don't come back for many years? He asked in low spirits. Looking at her, she didn't plan to take him with her. Not for many years. Her bright eyes landed on Fire Phoenix as she said seriously, I still have to bring my mother back for my father. Don't worry, I'll be back in 3 years at most. Seeing this, he could only nod his head. You said it yourself. 3 years at most. If you don't come back in 3 years, I'll go look for you. He was indeed worried about her being alone outside, especially in the 8 great empires. She was only a nascent soul cultivator in that kind of place. If she encountered danger, he would be a little worried if he was not by her side. Chapter 1234. Being hugged by her, Fire Phoenix felt as if he was being hugged by her when he was young. He couldn't help but grin. To him, Fengjiu was his master, and more like a mother. He had been by her side since they were young. From the initial disdain and contempt, to later liking and acknowledging her from the bottom of his heart. Step by step, he was growing, and she was growing as well. Master, I won't be by your side to protect you. You must take good care of yourself. Don't get hurt. He was still worried and reminded her, 3 years. Remember to come back and pick me up in 3 years. And, I will. She replied with a smile. Only then did she bring him to the palace to tell her grandfather and father about this matter. Inside the palace, what? You want Fire Phoenix to stay and be the country's divine beast protector? How can that be? Feng Sanyuan and Feng Xiao objected after hearing her words. You don't have to worry about the Phoenix dynasty. Now that the various countries have come to congratulate us, those powers and clans only want to be on good terms with us. We will be fine here. But you, if you go to the 8 great empires alone, how can we be at ease without Fire Phoenix by your side? As he spoke, Feng Sanyuan waved his hand and shook his head. No, I don't agree to this. I don't agree, you have to bring Fire Phoenix with you. Feng Xiao also said, that's right, Xiao Jiu. Don't worry here. From the current situation, there won't be any danger here. Although we are still a 6th-tier country, even the people from the 1st-tier countries won't be so stupid to attack us after we have such strength. Hearing their words, Fire Phoenix's eyes lit up. He looked at his master beside him. They didn't want him to stay. If his master agreed, then it would be great. He could go with his master to the 8 great empires. However, Fengjiu shook her head and said seriously, no, I'm not worried about the powers from the 1st-tier countries. I'm worried about the people from the 8 great empires. Her voice paused for a moment before she continued, the rise of the Phoenix Empire is too fast, it will definitely attract the jealousy of others. Even if the people from the other empires did not make a move, it is hard to guarantee that they will not secretly hire people to deal with us. If it is the experts from the 8 great empires, just one of them would be enough to destroy an entire empire. Speaking of this, her brows furrowed slightly. When I went to the Hell Mountain Range, I met a powerful cultivator whose strength was definitely above the nascent soul stage. If such a powerful cultivator wanted to take action, no matter how many Phoenix guards there were, they wouldn't be able to stop him. However, the Fire Phoenix is different. No matter how powerful a cultivator is, they wouldn't be a match for an adult primordial divine beast. With the growth of the Fire Phoenix now, its pressure can crush everything, including cultivators above the nascent soul stage. Hearing her words, the 2 men's faces turned grave. Indeed, what they had seen and encountered now was only the tip of the Golden Mountain. There were too many powerhouses in this world. If there were really powerhouses above the nascent soul realm, then would they have the strength to protect their dynasty? She looked at them and said, that's why I want to keep the Fire Phoenix here for 3 years. If nothing major happens after 3 years, then it should be fine. Even if something happens, I can be at ease with the Fire Phoenix here. Feng Xiao and his father looked at each other, then looked at Fire Phoenix, then looked at Fengjiu and asked, but if the Fire Phoenix stays, then what will you do? If you go there alone, won't it be dangerous without the Fire Phoenix by your side in that kind of environment? Chapter 1235. Hearing this, they finally agreed. Her worries were reasonable as well. If someone really invited the experts of the 8 great empires to deal with their Phoenix dynasty, then no one would dare to step forward and help them. As for her, as long as she restrained her aura, there wouldn't be much of a problem. However, even they themselves didn't quite believe this, because no matter where she went, she wouldn't be peaceful. Sigh. Forget it, let her go out and explore. Now that things had come to this, they could only believe in her. Grandfather, father, I've been back for a few days. I plan to leave in a few days and send Yi Jing back. Fengjiu looked at the 2 and said, I've already arranged everything on hand. I plan to leave the 8 Phoenix guards behind. This time, I'll only bring Ling Shuang, Ling Hua, and Du Fan. You're not bringing the Phoenix guards. You. Feng Xiao was a bit worried, but before he could finish, he was interrupted. Don't be so surprised. Leader Feng must have her reasons for not bringing them. Feng Sanyuan glared at him and then said to Fengjiu, Little Feng, tell us. Don't listen to your father. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and said, because I'm not familiar with the place. The more ordinary it is, the less trouble it will attract. Even if Ling Shuang is here, I might ask her to make some changes. No matter what, we believe in your decision. However, you must remember, if you encounter danger and can't win, you must run. There's nothing more important than staying alive, understand? Feng Sanyuan said in a deep voice. Yes, I know. She nodded, you must take good care of yourselves when I'm not home. Don't worry. We will. The two nodded and said. Thus, Fengjiu bid farewell to her family a few days later and sent Yi Jing back. At the same time, they finally left for the 8 great empires. Not long after she left, the Shangguan family sent the third elder to the Shangguan family. Feng Xiao had discussed with Fengjiu that they would not acknowledge this marriage and give up on the idea. Even if Shangguan Wanrong came back in the future, they only wanted to recognize Shangguan Wanrong and not recognize the Shangguan family as relatives. Fengjiu didn't bring the fire phoenix with him. Instead, he brought White, Blackie, and the 3 cloud-swallowing beasts with him. However, he kept them in his space because they weren't eye-catching. She thought that after arriving there, she would first buy a house in a town near the Danyang sect to house Ling Shuang and the other 2. The 8 great empires were mysterious to the people here. Not only were they extremely far away from here, but more importantly, the journey to the 8 great empires was dangerous. It was not easy to reach the 8 great empires. When the people from the Nebula sect came to select disciples, other than those who took the flying ship back, there were also some who directly used the teleportation formation to send their disciples back. The fastest way to go back and forth was indeed the teleportation formation. However, it required a large amount of spirit stones to activate the teleportation formation. It could be done in the blink of an eye. However, not all sects would use the teleportation formation. Even a large sect like the Nebula sect would only use the flying ship. This was because if they took the flying ship back, they could still explain the customs of the various places, as well as the things to pay attention to and the rules of the sect. At the same time, it was also to prepare them mentally for the change of identity. Chapter 1236. Ling Shuang, the thing inside is for you. It's a mask. She looked at her and said, your appearance is too outstanding, and you're a woman. With this kind of strength, it'll be hard for you to protect yourself without strength. Just wear this mask. With this mask, you won't be able to find you even if you walk into a crowd. Come, I'll teach you how to use it. Thank you, Master. Ling Shuang replied and took the mask. She walked to the side and put it on her face under her guidance. After putting on the mask, she touched her face, and her eyes couldn't help but flash. The mask on her face was like her own face. It didn't feel like she was wearing a mask at all. She just didn't know how she would feel after putting on the mask. Just as she was thinking, Leng Hua took out a mirror from his space and handed it over. Sister, look. Master made such a good mask. I couldn't even recognize you. Ling Shuang took the mirror and looked at it. She saw that her originally cold and elegant appearance was covered. Her current appearance could only be considered delicate and pretty. Seeing this, she smiled, Master, this mask is really good. I'll wear it all the time. What do you mean, wear it all the time? Fengjiu shook his head and smiled, this mask can't be worn all the time. You have to let the skin under the mask breathe occasionally. However, it's fine to wear it normally. Just remember, you have to take it off occasionally to breathe. Yes. She nodded. Du Fan's eyes lit up when he saw this. He looked at Fengjiu, Master, do you have any more masks like this? Can you give me one too? Look, I'm also very handsome. I'm also worried about being targeted. Hearing this, Fengjiu rolled his eyes, do you think this is tofu on the street? You can have as many as you want. I only prepared one for Ling Shuang. None of you have one. Besides, didn't you call yourself a jade-faced scholar? Isn't this pretty good? I was thinking that this treasure of yours is good. It's like I'm a different person wearing it. He smiled embarrassedly. He was just envious of the good stuff. All right, you don't have to be envious. I've prepared everything for you. As she spoke, she took out something from her space. These things are for you. Here are some defensive magic treasures and some life-saving pills. Come, take them. She distributed the things to the three of them and said, act according to the plan we talked about on the way here. First, buy a house in the nearest city to the Danyang sect. It's best if you can set up a shop to sell some herbs and other things. Anyway, let's settle down first and get familiar with the place. Don't worry, master, we will. The few of them responded and happily put away the things she gave them carefully. These things were definitely expensive outside, but their master gave them to them so casually. Wait for me. Leng Shuang, come with me. She instructed them and had Du Fan's Leng Hua stay behind. She and Leng Shuang went to the forest. Not long after, the two of them walked out. Feng Jiu, who was originally dressed in red, had changed her appearance. Her face was slightly modified, and she changed out of her red clothes and put on a green one. She looked much less radiant. All right, let's go. Wearing red clothes was too conspicuous. It was possible that the people from Xianyuan Mo's would discover them. She wanted to find an opportunity to secretly check on his current situation. She couldn't let him know that she was already here. Chapter 1237. When he received the news from above to report Fengjiu's recent situation, he sent his subordinates to investigate. After this investigation, his subordinates found out that after returning to the Phoenix dynasty, the ghost doctor seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Therefore, they hurriedly reported this news to Ren Xiang. What? Disappeared? How could she disappear? Didn't I tell you to keep an eye on her? Ren Xiang frowned, angrily glared at the people below, and shouted, even if you lost her, you should know which country she went to, right? Hearing this, the people kneeling below lowered their heads even more, not daring to open their mouths. You don't know. Ren Xiang's voice slightly raised, somewhat stunned and angrily scolded, what do you eat? Such a big person, but you don't know where she went. You don't even know which country she went to. Why aren't you going to find her for me? What are you doing here foolishly? Yes. The kneeling people quickly retreated, not daring to stay any longer. Where could she have gone? Could she have gone to a first-class country? Ren Xiang walked back and forth in the courtyard with his hands behind his back, while muttering, when she went to the Two-Star Academy, she just advanced to the Golden Core stage, this year has passed, I don't know if her strength has increased, at this time, where could she have gone? However, with her strength and reputation, as long as she didn't go to the depths of the Earth Vein mountain range, there shouldn't be anyone here who would make a move against her. He wasn't worried about the danger, but if his master wanted news of her, what could he give them? Directly send the news that he didn't know where the ghost doctor went. He estimated that once this news was sent back, he would suffer a calamity. But if he didn't send the news back, he would also be in trouble. Thinking about it, it was better to report the truth. Otherwise, it would be the same if the higher-ups sent someone down. Therefore, he turned and walked into the room, and not long after, he sent the news out. Compared to Fengjiu, who took 3 months to reach the 8 great empires, Ren Xiang's news only took about a month, and Xianyuan Mo's received the news. After the matters in the palace were settled, Xianyuan Mo's returned to his mansion. Xianyuan dynasty was one of the 8 great empires. The ruler of a country was called the Saint Emperor. The Saint Emperor ruled a country, and his spiritual power covered every inch of the Xianyuan dynasty. Of course, those sects were exceptions. Among the 8 great empires, only those sects were not included in the territories of the various empires. They had their own boundaries and did not belong to any of the empires, nor were they managed by any of the empires. In the current Xianyuan Empire, other than the Sage Emperor, Xianyuan Mo's had the greatest authority. However, He left after dealing with the matters in the palace and did not stay in the palace. In his own mansion, he stood by the pond with his hands clasped behind his back. Thinking about the news that Ren Xiang had sent someone to bring him, he frowned. How could he not find her? Then where would she go? When he heard the news last time that she actually brought a few people to the Hell Mountain range with her golden core cultivation, his heart was in his throat, fearing that she would encounter danger there. She, a mere gold core cultivator, actually dared to enter such a place. One had to know that if she was not careful, she would die inside. But thinking about it, that was indeed something she would do. With her personality, what else would she not dare to do? Fortunately, she came out safely in the end. But now, where did she go? Chapter 1238. At the same time, in the imperial city of the Xianyuan Empire, a skinny figure dressed in a shabby beggar's robe was entering through the city gates. Her face was obviously smeared with dust and dirt, but her eyes were exceptionally bright. She was looking around with a crafty and clever look. This person was none other than Fengjiu, who had the hobby of disguising himself as a beggar. When they arrived at the city closest to the Danyang sect, they asked around and found out that the Danyang sect would only recruit disciples in the spring of next year. Thus, when she saw that she couldn't enter the Danyang sect, she decided to target Xianyuan Mo's. She thought that since she couldn't go in to look for her mother, she might as well look for Xianyuan Mo's first. While she was at it, she might as well give him a last-minute surprise. She wanted to see if he had taken advantage of her absence to hug beauties left and right. Thus, after settling Ling Shuang, the others, and the little beasts in the residence they bought, she inquired about Xianyuan Mo's and came to the imperial city. She heard that although Xianyuan Mo's was the crown prince, he didn't live in the palace, but in a residence in the imperial city. As she walked, she thought about how to sneak into the residence. Although she could directly reveal her identity or find Hui Lang's shadow and swagger in, wouldn't that be a lot less fun? She actually wanted to know if he would be able to recognize her if she disguised herself and sneaked into his residence. When she thought of this, she felt a faint trace of excitement in her heart. However, his residence was bound to be heavily guarded, so it wouldn't be easy for her to sneak in. Thus, she used the identity of a beggar to travel back and forth in the imperial city, asking around for information. Occasionally, she would go to a place far away from his residence to sit and eat a bun while thinking of an idea. In this way, 3 days passed in a row. Sometimes, she would see Hui Lang going in and out, but she didn't see Xianyuan Mo's coming out. On the morning of the 3rd day, she followed behind the old man who came out of the crown prince's residence to buy things. She overheard the conversation between him and the person beside him. A distant nephew of mine is coming. I begged the steward to arrange a servant position for him in the manor. He will probably arrive at noon. Go to the city gate and pick him up for me. I still have a lot of work to do after I go back. I don't have time to pick him up personally. But I don't know your nephew. If you want me to help you pick someone up, you should at least tell me something special. The tall and skinny man said. Characteristics. It's hard to say what he looks like. I've only seen him once when he was 7 or 8 years old. So many years have passed, how would I know what he looks like now? But I said in the letter that he should tie a red cloth around his hand. You should be able to recognize him if you wait at the city gate. All right. I got it. The tall and thin man responded while helping to purchase the items. Fengjiu, who was eating a fruit at the back, crunched on it loudly. Her eyes darted around as an idea suddenly appeared in her mind. She glanced at the 2 people walking in front of her. They were 2 Peak Foundation establishment cultivators, but they were only servants in the residence who bought things. These days, when she was in the city, she saw that the peddlers and people in the shops on the streets were mostly Foundation establishment and Golden Core cultivators. Some of those people were waiters in restaurants, some were guards in shops, and some were hawkers on the streets. It could be said that it was an eye-opener for her. Chapter 1239. As for nascent soul cultivators, there were actually shopkeepers here, which made her speechless. A nascent soul cultivator who was the head of a family or even an ancestor in a first-class country was actually a shopkeeper here. It was really amazing. However, after a few days, she calmed down a lot. She already knew that where there were strong people, there were also weak people. However, she didn't expect that the so-called weak people here were doing menial work. Although that was the case, with a nascent soul cultivator here, most people wouldn't dare to mess around here. She thought to herself as she walked while biting the fruit. She came to a place where there was no one and changed her clothes. After wiping the dust off her face, she turned into a young man in ordinary clothes. She was wearing a green robe, and her eyes were smart and cunning with a hint of calculation. Then, she walked towards the city gate. After waiting for a few days, she finally had this opportunity. Of course, she had to seize it. She waited at the city gate from morning until noon, but she didn't see anyone coming. She couldn't help but feel anxious. Could this person have gotten lost? Or not coming? Then wouldn't her plan be ruined? Just as she was thinking, she saw a figure dragging a sack into the city. The hand that was tied with a red cloth was holding the sack. As he walked, he looked around as if he was looking for someone. Seeing this, Fengjiu quickly walked forward and pulled him to the side. "You're that, what's your name again?" "I'm Daniel. Did my uncle ask you to pick me up?" "Oh. Yes, it's Daniel. It's Daniel." Fengjiu patted his head and laughed. "Look at my brain, I actually remembered this name wrong. But it's good that I picked you up." "Hee, yes. It's good that you picked me up. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to wait for you." He put down the sack on his shoulder and grinned. "My father asked me to bring this to my uncle." "You big fool, you're still smiling so happily. Let me tell you, you're in big trouble." Fengjiu lowered his voice and said to him, "Your uncle sent me here to tell you to go home quickly. You lost your position. This is the money he wants you to take home. Take it." She took out a bag and stuffed it into the young man's hand. "Also, your uncle said that you shouldn't write to him for the next few months. He'll contact you once the storm is over." "Ah. Really?" The young man's face paled. He was a little scared. "Yes, where's his letter to you?" she asked. It's here." He quickly took it out and handed it to Fengjiu. "And, that's good enough. You should go back quickly. I'll pass this bag to your uncle." She gestured and took off the red cloth on his hand, urging him to leave quickly. The young man saw that there was money to be earned and heard that there was danger. Naturally, he did not dare to stay and hurriedly left. Seeing him leave the city, Fengjiu smiled and narrowed his eyes. He quickly tied the cloth on his arm and carried the bag to the city gate to wait. After about half an incense stick's worth of time, the tall and thin man came to the city gate. He saw the young man with the red cloth tied to his hand sitting in the corner and quickly ran over. "You're that Daniel?" "That's me," Fengjiu responded. He looked at the tall and thin man and happily asked, "Did my uncle send you to pick me up?" "Where's my uncle? Why didn't he come?" You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.